There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, if it's alive.
1, 2, 3, set, go!
Yeah, you definitely sound clear.
All right, you sound good on my end. Then we'll, and we can just start like talking about it now. I guess this is the intro. This right now, as I'm talking, as my mouth is moving, this is going to be the beginning of it. And you know, I'm sure anyone listening to this right now has seen the title of the podcast. But Insomniac, Green Day's Insomniac, turns 25 the week that we're recording that, or really, I guess, the following, actually exactly a week, right? It would be next Saturday it turns 25. So we're recording this a week before it turns 25 exactly. And yeah, me and my dude Kyle Steven, you know Stevens, you know him as, I mean, one of the Illinois bad boys of the show. Not a Joser, not a hashtag Joser. We definitely got into this oh no, fuck no, dude. You are not a Joser. You are definitely not. And you know, I would not be doing this episode if you were. I've wanted to do an episode where like we kind of dissect a record. Like that's kind of the thing of this. We're gonna do like an album analysis, and you know, I've wanted to dissect it with some buddies. And this is me and Kyle kind of were starting to do this on the last episode. And we were getting to like the bands that got us into music, and then we got into other subjects, one being Josers. And this time we're gonna go more down the Green Day, you know, rabbit hole that I think we were gonna last time, maybe more than we did. So I mean, we're gonna dissect this record, what we like about it. We're gonna go down track by track, and you know, I mean, really just any which way you can. We're gonna talk about this album until you're fucking sick of it and you never want to listen to Green Day ever again. That's kind of the plan here. But Kyle, dude, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good, brother. I'm happy to be back.
I always enjoy doing these with you. I mean, like this is the third time we've had you on, and they are always enjoyable. And I mean, I will throw this in here, a little shameless plug or whatever. But if you are listening to this and you're like newer to the podcast and you've not heard our episodes of Kyle, I really do enjoy them. Go check them out. Top 5 Blink-182 songs. And he had some great takes in that one. And then also the Neon is for hashtag Josers. You got to go. I don't even know how to explain that one. There's really, just go listen to it. Just go listen to that one and you'll thank me after. So there's lots of Kyle audio out there to check out. And I think this is going to be a good one. So I mean, starting out, I asked you to do this, and I wanted to analyze a record, and I said I gave you the band, but I made you pick the record. I'm like, all right, we're gonna do Green Day, but you pick the album. So I mean, why did you pick Insomniac for us to dissect?
Oh well, I mean, it's so fun because like this record was one of the very like early records for me as a child, kind of getting introduced to like the punk rock scene. Obviously everyone knows Green Day's Dookie, great album, like it launched them into like a stratosphere that they probably didn't expect to be in.
I doubt it.
I liked Offspring and like Operation Ivy and like some of these other earlier bands, but like this record, it had it's funny, it had a visual influence on me first and foremost because my brother had a poster of the entire album art, not just like what you actually see. Like
the one, sleeve. Oh yeah, the really cool one. It's like I think the vinyl might actually have the whole picture, like has the alternate cover art, which I like the original anyways. But yeah, like that's a cropped version of the real thing. Like the whole thing is really fucking cool. That has to be like their best album artwork, I would say, like hands down.
Oh yeah, it's funny because yeah, when like kind of getting into it, like visually, it was like my first introduction to the album, just because of the actual picture itself and the poster. And I remember just because of my parents, my dad was a huge Rush fan, and like every time I look at this album, I just picture like every Rush cover that I saw as a child mashed into like one giant like poster, and I was just like, this thing's fucking cool. And like I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't have the record, I didn't have a CD yet, so I only had the visuals to go off of. And because I knew it was Green Day, I knew it was going to be cool. I just had to wait until my brother played it in our room, or if it was just like a hand-me-down CD. So my introduction to it musically took a strange route because it was all visual for me first.
That's interesting. And do you like, how do you feel with it, like connecting it, like you were saying, like you saw the artwork before you saw the music? Like, I feel like it fits really well when you do listen to it. It is a somewhat darker record, I would say, than Dookie, and I think really the artwork like represents it really well. Like, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Like what I wrote, like as I was trying to analyze this record, and I was an adult compared to how I was listening to it as a kid, the first thing I wrote was just lyrically, this is a really dark downer album lyrically.
It really is.
It is. And yeah, visually, like seeing the poster, like as a kid, I just thought it looked cool, but like I didn't really connect it to. And then as I got like older and ended up getting a cassette and then like a burned CD and actually listening to it, like it did make sense. Like once I learned what the lyrics were of the record, because musically it's, you know, it's really upbeat and super fast. But once I really digested the lyrics, the poster made more sense to me. And it was, you know, it all came together in like a really cool way for me.
See, that's a good point too about how like musically, I mean, it's still like the songs are all basically in like they're in major keys, and you know the musically doesn't sound much different than Dookie, and not even in a bad way, but I mean kind of a continuation of that. But it's the lyrics. They kind of pull that whole thing where I guess the Smiths are like the biggest one of that, where like it's happy music with really like fucked up lyrics. And, you know, Green Day 100% did that on Insomniac. It's kind of the like punk version of that where, yeah, it's like this music. I mean, not even that it's the happiest sounding music, but I mean, it's just sounds like a, you know, your standard pop punk record of the time. But I mean, really probably lyrics a lot darker than what was big at the time. And also off Dookie, I mean, I think there's a lot more maybe seriousness on this one. Like I feel Dookie kind of has, like they were, and really the other thing, which I'm sure we'll get into, is, I mean, the record, I mean, Dookie was 94, Insomniac was 95. So, I mean, this stuff was getting written within like, I mean, probably had to be like within a year of each other. But like, you kind of look at it and really how much I think probably the attention and fame kind of hit the band, because yeah, you look at Dookie and it's kind of this, you know, I mean, there's songs I guess have more serious topics, but it's like it is more of a juvenile record. I think it's more lighthearted, where within just a year you have this new record where it's like, oh yeah, like it's not as it's really not as playful. Like it's like a lot more serious. It's kind of very grown up from only being like, you know, like a year in between.
Yeah, like you just said, you know, with such limited time between records, part of it for me, the reason why I really ended up enjoying this record was that like Dookie blew up for them and it was great, and they had the hits that they had off that album, and the hits were so massive that they basically like shadowed this entire record, in my opinion, to the point where like I still feel like to this day, and I have no confirmation to it, I still feel like if I were to ask like just a cliche like punk rock pop punk kid of like the 90s and like early 2000s, that whole era, if I were to bring up this album, most people probably either A, wouldn't know of it, and if they did, they probably assumed it came before Dookie.
Oh, dude, I was talking to you about this when you picked this record, and I really didn't, up until a few weeks ago, because I mentioned this album on, I was doing a podcast about a bunch of records that came out in 1995, and when I was putting the list together and looking at records came out that year, that was only when I realized that it had come out like a year and a half later, and was the follow-up to it. I guess I assumed Nimrod was, like, I guess I just got them kind of mixed up in the timeline, but it doesn't sound like it definitely doesn't. Like, I don't feel like it's the record that you would think would come next. And really, though, I think this happened a lot in that era, because an example I was just about to bring up, and I didn't even think about it, but they also put out a record, obviously, because Smash was like such a big goddamn record, but
Oh my God.
Ixnay on the Hombre is another one where I go, that album doesn't sound like what would be the next one. Like, to me, that's another where I'm like, that almost sounds like earlier stuff. And I wonder, like, do you feel like they probably fell in the same thing that Green Day did, where it was just like, just that pressure? Because that's another one. I mean, Smash and Dookie, sold so many fucking records. Like those have to be not even punk. Like you can take out the fact that those are both punk records. Those are just some of the greatest selling records of the 90s period. And to like go from that to the next one seemed to really fuck them up.
Yeah, I can see the similarities totally. Man, because like most people, like if I were to ask someone about, I would assume, if I were to ask people about this record and they probably wouldn't know of it, they would at least know the song Brain Stew, which is the biggest hit off this album by any means.
And it's probably one of their, don't you feel like this is kind of a funny thing? Because Insomniac didn't sell all that much, but don't you, like, I feel like Brain Stew is probably one of their most well-known singles. Even though the record's not very well-known, that I feel like I hear on the radio in places almost more than anything else. And even, like, if a band's going to cover Green Day, like, if you go see a bar band and they're going to cover Green Day, that almost always seems to be the song that gets covered.
Yeah, honestly, it's either going to be Brain Stew or it'll probably end up being, like, Longview or Basket Case when I come around, you know, the Dookie hits.
That's very true.
But like, it's funny, like, I don't know if, I mean, I can bring this up now since we're already on the topic of at least the song. This song was like probably a lot of people, one of the first songs they actually heard off this album. And I remember hearing it, and specifically one particular like section of song that like blew my mind, like as a kid, that was like one of the pivotal reasons for me to even want to play guitar. And you know how like kind of go into a different band for a split second, you know how like in that Radiohead song Creep, where it does like the I wish I was special, so fucking special,
you're talking
and then
about
you hear
the
that
chugs?
really crazy the crazy like not yeah, so that part in Radiohead where a lot of people were like, holy shit, that sounds cool. For me as a kid, hearing like the chorus in Brain Stew, where not isn't just the didn't, but like the scratchy filler notes that are just really just not even playing the strings, just like hands off the frets, still holding the strings down and just kind of making noise. That noise in between each note blew my mind as a child, being like, what is that and how can I do that on a guitar? Because I didn't play yet. I was like, but that sound was like so crazy that I was like, if I learn how to play guitar, I have to learn that specifically.
I want to get when we get back on this song, like as we're like going down the track list, I wrote down a bunch of stuff exactly what you're talking about, where also just how layered, like really how produced that song is, not realizing how produced it actually is, and just things like that where a lot of people, like I was listening to Brain Stew today, and I guess it's probably not the first time I've heard it, but I forget about it a lot, how in that second verse, there is just that chugging layered underneath, and he's not really playing, I don't think he's playing any notes. It's like you're saying, he's just like chugging on open strings, just like with the gain up really loud. And it makes the song. You don't realize it, but it's like that's what's giving that song that like oomph and like that just such a boost, you know, including when you're talking about a band that was just a trio, which is the other thing I got to say too on this record is it really, there's a couple times where they shine on this album where I just go like, that's why you have a power, like a good power trio. And obviously Green Day being one of the probably most popular ones in history. Just like how good they are as a trio, like not sounding empty or anything like that, which ironically, though they play arenas and that's why, but I mean, ironically, they're far from a trio when they're live. But, you know, I also understand that's filling out, you know, like you're playing fucking arenas, like you're Green Day. So it's like, it's not like they're doing that because they can't play. It's like you're playing such big places that's how you fill out the sound in the room. But like, I think on Insomniac, they really, there's a couple moments on there where they just shine as a trio. Like they just interlock so well. And the one thing I noticed too on a couple songs on here that I really liked, and I wish they did more on this record, but like on some of those choruses with Billy and Mike both singing, very underrated. You don't think about it a lot, but Mike will come in on songs a lot of times on the chorus, and it really adds to it. Like I always think of Billy, you know, because Billy sings on all of them, but I forget how Mike will sometimes come on and his vocals underneath Billy's work, like, I don't know, really, really well. But
yeah, another one of the little things I kind of wrote down was, I feel like by comparison from Dookie to this, yes, it's the follow-up album, the sophomore album, quote unquote, to Dookie, but the mix sounds so clean for just a three-piece, Green Day punk rock band.
yeah,
But everything comes through super clean. So like you're saying, like Mike's vocals, on the choruses and stuff like that really come through. And it's one of the few records that I can really appreciate musically because I can always hear everything. Because there's sometimes songs that I listen to that like will be, 4 or 5 piece band, whatever, and I can't hear the bass. I can't hear anything that they're doing. And if they are doing something, sometimes it's just following the root note of the guitar. Mike's bass cuts through so well.
yes.
And he's not just playing root notes
No,
and stuff
fuck
like
no.
that. He's really playing. He's literally playing the bass, not just playing the bass. He's really like doing work on it, and you can hear it so well. So like them being a 3-piece band, they make a lot of noise, but like on this record specifically, you can hear it all, and it sounds clean and it sounds good, and it doesn't sound over or underproduced. It just
It's a better produced Dookie kind of, because I mean musically it sounds like continuation of Dookie, but the more you talk about it and I think about it, I prefer the production of Insomniac more. And Dookie, there's nothing wrong with Dookie, but if I was thinking of it from that standpoint, they sound way better on Insomniac. It's like a better produced Dookie kinda.
They got that Dookie money.
Yeah, that's true. They got that fucking Dookie money at that point. It is true, dude. Got the Dookie money now.
Yeah, right. They got that Dookie money, and everything just came together. And with that, like you said, it's like I said earlier, like some people probably would think this would be an earlier record just due to its like quote unquote lack of popularity, but it sounds like a perfect continuation of the Dookie record, where I can't think of many albums off the top of my head that flow so well together.
Yes.
Where you can like listen to one record and go immediately to the next without being like, whoa, this is so different, or hey, they really changed it on this one. Or it's just like you can listen to both records like back to back without skipping a beat, and you're thinking you're listening to like a nearly 30 song single album.
Yeah. Oh no, that definitely, I would definitely agree with that. And I mean, like something that I noticed, and we talked about this a little bit before recording this, but like I feel like I really didn't appreciate it when I first heard it, because I remember Dookie when it was on the radio. Like I guess it would have been a few years later, because like I was born in 1992, so I don't remember Dookie coming out per se. But I do remember hearing like When I Come Around and Basket Case on the radio in the night. Like I did know who Green Day was, but like my real like interest in Green Day and like listening to more than the hits was when American Idiot hit. I mean, I would have been like 12 or 13 in like 2005, and like I got in it to there, and then heard Dookie, and then I feel like, and what I was telling you is I kind of did a disservice to like Nimrod, Insomniac, and Warning, where I kind of got that, like I bought them all, but it was in the middle of me still really loving, like really falling in love with a band, and one of the first bands that I really fell in love with like that in my life. And I was just so ingrained with like Dookie and American Idiot that I think really only the last few years did I realize how good those 3 records I just mentioned in between are front to back. Like I liked songs off them and I enjoyed them, but like even this, like doing this, like you picking Insomniac, you kind of made me realize how fucking good it is front to back, where it's like not just certain songs. It's like, oh, this album front to back works really, like the sequencing of it is perfect. Mm-hmm. The songs work really well. And like you just said too, I love that idea of Dookie into Insomniac. It's like one long, like basically like pop punk masterpiece. But like I also wanted to bring up, and I meant to earlier, but like you were talking about like the difference in popularity and like how different this is. I don't know what it sold the year it came out, but I looked on Wikipedia before recording this, and as of now, even like in 2020, Dookie is diamond in the United States. I mean, altogether it sold like 13 or 14 million, but just in the United States, it sold 10 million records, Insomniac in 2020 still is only double platinum in America. That is 2 million. So there is, like, we're not talking about the rest of the world either, but there is an 8 million copy difference in between that. Now, obviously, since then, there's piracy and Spotify and all that shit. But even at the time, and this is another funny thing I want to bring up, like, those Green Day records, Insomniac, Nimrod, and Warning, those did not sell well. Like, those did not sell well when they came out. But the funny thing is, you look back now, and they did sell like 1 million records in the first year. But at that time, that wasn't good. You know, like, years later, like, now if a record went platinum, you go, holy shit. Like, records don't sell like they did. So it's like, to even go platinum is huge. Like, those numbers now are huge. But in 1995, when they released Insomniac, maybe it went gold in the first year, maybe. Like, I mean, if it took 25 years for it to be double platinum here, it couldn't have sold more than maybe 1 million in the first year. And that compared to what Dookie was doing at the time, like, they're still selling Dookie hand over fist while they're selling Insomniac, but Insomniac's not selling like that, you know?
Yeah, no, and it's so weird now hearing this record as an adult and really kind of being able to break it down and kind of process it and not just listen to it being like, oh, I remember being, 10 or 12 or whatever, however old I was, like, listening to it on cassette. I honestly think now, after listening to it, as an adult, I think it's a better record than Dookie.
Ooh.
And, like I love Dookie. Like, Dookie's always going to have a place in my heart. Insomniac will always have a place in my heart. But now, as an adult, listening to the records and really being able to process it, I think almost in every aspect, it is a better record. Maybe minus the quote-unquote hits that came off between the two and, like, the popularity. But sound-wise and just everything else, Insomniac takes it for me.
God damn, dude, I don't want to, like, piggyback you, and I didn't even think about this before the episode, but you're almost turning me in that way, because I normally, if you ask me, my gut reaction or, like, fucking knee-jerk reaction is just Dookie. Like, if you ask me my favorite Green Day record, I just kind of say Dookie, because it is. But then you're making me think now, and it's like, I'm just probably kind of saying Dookie because, it's one of the first ones I got into, and it is a classic. But, like, the more
absolutely.
I'm listening to them, you're kind of getting me on this where it's like production sleeker. I mean, we've already established that production's better on Insomniac. It's kind of a darker Dookie, but I mean, there is some humor in there. Like, I mean, we'll get into it, but I mean, like, fucking the second song on the record, I mean, is about waiting for your parents to die for inheritance. Like, shit like that, where it's like, there's still funny, there's still dark humor, and there's still, like, like that sarcastic band. It's not like they completely lost it. So it's kind of a better, like, meshing of the two. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And also, I mean, you named your first major label album Dookie. So, I mean, even not naming the next one after shit is already a mature thing. Like, they could have called it anything else. And Dookie, like, it doesn't matter what they could have called it Enema of the State, and it would have been a fucking more mature, like follow up to Dookie. Which also they apparently wanted to name it Liquid Dookie, and the label said that was too obscene. Which I don't. There's something funny about that. Where, I mean, it's not that it's much different, but I almost agree, because I feel like Liquid Dookie puts a worse visual in my head than just an album called Dookie.
Well, when we get to it, even though they didn't get the Liquid Dookie out, I mean, they got a music video out that was definitely more than enough for people to handle.
I mean, the whole, like, I'm sure they'll get brought up a couple times, but they're just like Blink-182 with me, where I laugh at this, and I always hope people give them the credit, and I'm not talking about musically or anything like that, but the fact that both bands are not, I guess it would have been Blink-182's second one. Actually, I'll give them two here, though. With Green Day, you have your major label release and you name it Dookie, and then then it sells ungodly amounts. Like, and it's kind of like we were talking about too, where it's like, or you mentioned it and you're like, I don't think they thought it was going to be as big as it was, and I don't think in any way did they think that Dookie was going to, like, set them into stardom. I don't think that was ever a thought. Which also makes me wonder, do you think they would have called it Dookie if they realized it was going to be as big as it was? Like, I wonder if they wouldn't have went with that. Not that I'm not shitting on it, no pun intended. I'm not shitting on the record, on the record title. Sure. But it's like, still, you're kind of like, I wonder if they would change it. But anyway, the fucking thing I'm going down here is just how funny I think it is that you get on a major label and you get all this mainstream attention and you name your album Dookie or your Blink-182 and you put a bull's balls on your album cover, and then the next one you call it Enema of the State, and then you call the next one Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, and like that's just hilarious. Like, I think that's the funniest fucking thing. And then that they're mainstream, like these are mainstream things. These are huge bands we're talking about, and it's just hilarious to me that like they kind of took the piss out of the whole thing by like, yeah, this is there's money behind this. Like we're now we have money behind us. We're on a major label. We're gonna get all this distribution. We'll be on radio and MTV, and this is what we're gonna name our record. There's something to respect there.
Yeah, and obviously we're not mainly supposed to be talking about Blink here, but just because you brought it up. And the fact that Blink even named it Enema of the State, making fun of Rage Against the Machine's Enemy of the State.
That is fucking good.
Like that is a band like not many people really like fuck with as far as like poking the bear, so to speak. And Blink just fucking does it, and like they get the biggest record of their career out of like a really dumb album name.
And enema is in the word of it.
Yeah, exactly. And like when I was a kid, I didn't know what an enema was. I just thought it was funny. I was like, oh, they're making fun of Rage Against the Machine.
I learned what
enema from my brother.
I learned enema from Blink-182, and I also learned urethra from Blink-182. I mean, I learned about my body. I learned about like everything through Blink-182.
I heard of the word dysentery through Oregon Trail, but didn't know what it meant until Blink-182 got it.
You know what? You're right. And I never played Oregon Trail, so Dysentery Gary was my first introduction in that too. There's a lot of firsts there that Blink-182 definitely introduced me to. But yeah, I mean, and I'm sure they'll come back up. The parallels of, I mean, because once again, like if we're talking like 90s punk or just pop punk, like really just the genre pop punk in general, those are probably the two biggest bands of all time. You know what I mean? Like, it's still kind of mind-blowing they've only toured once. Like, the Pop Disaster tour, it's crazy. That was like a one-time thing. Like, I feel like that should have happened way more.
Yeah, you think, but also, like, it almost makes sense because, like, two of the biggest bands probably of all time in the genre, like, and coming from the same state, like,
that's true.
One tour together is super mind blowing, but it would almost be like if you see like these like NoFX, Bad Religion, type bands that like seem to always tour with each other like constantly, and like how many times can you see the same tour lineup before you're like,
yeah,
I've seen this
true.
on Warped Tour all the time, and it gets a little old, but like. By all means, like if they toured even like one or two more times together, I don't think the world would have hated it.
No, I don't think so. It'd be interesting if they did now. I don't know. It would be fun, but I think that was the best era they did too. Like as far as we're talking like albums and stuff, because both bands at that point put out, they were all, not even that they were touring off my favorite records, but I'm like, Green Day's playing everything from Warning and back. Like Warning was the newest thing. And then Blink-182, the newest shit they were playing was Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Like, when you think in that context, I'm like, holy shit, like, that's a time to see them. That would have been an era. But
yeah, for sure.
Something, now, before, we'll get down our tracks here in a second, but I just had a couple more thoughts that I had down that I want to talk about. And Insomniac, another reason why I just thought it was such an interesting record is it's obviously not their sophomore record, but you know how people like talk about sophomore slumps and stuff? This is almost not that it was a sophomore slump, but like this is almost more of pressure on them probably than Kerplunk was. Like the whole sophomore thing, like with Kerplunk, I don't feel like they even thought about that. They put Kerplunk out, and I thought that was even better than their first record. This is the one where I think like some of the most pressure they've ever felt. Like if you were to ask Billy Joe, I would imagine that the two albums most stressful and like with the most pressure to make would be Insomniac and 21st Century Breakdown. I think the records that come after the big one, like, well, because both of the Dookie and American Idiot were so fucking big that like, and once again, here's the other thing that you got to think about. Like we were talking about, they probably didn't think Dookie was going to be big, and I don't think they thought American Idiot was going to be that big because at that point, like we're talking about, this band at that, like Warning sold even worse. Warning has probably sold even less copies than Insomniac has actually. Like I'm not even joking about that.
Probably, and I love Warning. I think that's such an underrated record.
It's an extremely underrated record. Like those three, basically Green Day, anything they put out in between Dookie and American Idiot, I think is underrated to this day, which is funny to say because they're such a huge band. But like those three records there, Nimrod, Insomniac, Warning, I mean, those to this day are insanely, grossly underrated. Like, you know, the singles might get some love, but like, fuck the singles. Like the stuff on there is what's really good. Like the album tracks or what you need off those. But when you think about that, like American Idiot putting that out, they probably didn't have the kind of pressure you would think. I don't think they were trying to make something that became as culturally big as it was. And same with Dookie. So like they kind of fall into the success of those two. Now it's doing the follow-up. It's trying to do what you're going to do with Dookie afterwards, and same with American Idiot, because American Idiot was just as, like, those were both records that, like we're talking about, it's like you don't forget that they're a punk band. Like, you can take genre out of this. It doesn't matter what genre you're like, just call them a rock band. They're those records, when they came out, both of those records, they were the biggest thing in rock music. In 2005 and in 1994, like they did something that most bands can't do, and that's like recreate like the huge. You get that like hype machine once in your, if you're lucky, you get it once. But to get it twice after doing a few records that were kind of panned anyways, like to come back from that, that's fucking huge. But yeah, I mean the pressure on Insomniac and 21st Century Breakdown, I would imagine those had to be the two like most stressful ones to make. But like I wonder too, or not even wonder, like this is another thing when you think of the era with Insomniac, and I've been like looking up shit like from that time. So I mean I've seen them say it, but like you forget how much that whole sellout stuff, like how prominent it was in the 90s and how much it actually fucked with them. Like Billy Joe wrote about, like, in like there's interviews and stuff out there where it's like that truly was a thing that fucked with him. Like his girlfriend, I believe, left him when he signed to a major label, like, which he wrote songs about and shit. Like, you know, they were barred from Gilman Street, like all this different stuff where it really did kind of take a toll on them, where I also wonder, because we sit here and I go, like, I feel like it was a continuation of Dookie, but I also almost say that where I think that they would like try to do something different for the next one. But it also begs the question that maybe this is all they wanted to write. Like maybe that was the plan, because it's like Dookie, they never thought Dookie was going to be huge anyways, I would assume. So maybe they weren't trying to be like, you know what I mean? Maybe they weren't trying to up the ante on Insomniac. Maybe they just wanted to write, you know, a punk record or a pop punk record.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and it's funny that you kind of just brought this up about like kind of the whole like sellout thing, which in my opinion, like listening to this record, like I said, again, as an adult, kind of being able to reprocess it almost in my head, kind of like I'm not in their head thinking this, but like in my head, it almost seems like with this record, Insomniac, is that like, yes, it's a continuation of Dookie, and like the lyrics are darker, you know, a little bit, and like more like heavy, but like it almost feels like a more punk rock album than Dookie was. So in between this time, if they're getting like the sellout, you know, kind of BS that they'd be getting because of the fame, the sound and like the music put through on this album gives me more almost of a punk rock vibe than the previous album, just because it sounds a little bit more produced, but it just has, I don't know, it just has more of a bite to it, more of a bit of an aggression to it. And to follow up something you said even just a little bit earlier with, you know, the pressure of these quote unquote like after hit record sophomore albums, with all that being said, those big albums could not have happened without these records previous. So like, yes, there was, you know, Dookie, I'll just kind of start there as far as the quote unquote fame of Green Day goes. They made Insomniac, in my opinion, obviously in our opinion, a great record, which led into Nimrod, which Nimrod is a great album in and of itself. And the last half of that record was so experimental as far as like changing their sound that Warning could not have happened without Nimrod, because of just the change in sound and the experimentation they did on Nimrod with, you know, kind of, you know, doing some more acoustic-y stuff and, you know, experimenting on different types of, like, you know, recording processes to go into Warning. And I've even heard in interviews now going into American Idiot that American Idiot record wouldn't have happened vibe-wise if they didn't like Warning so much. Warning was such a big album for them as far as, musical growth, because if you listen to that record, almost all of it's like acoustics and, just stuff that you wouldn't expect from like a Green Day band, a punk rock band. And it was just, a lot of acoustics like in the background and just, a wider range, but outside of kind of the quote unquote distorted punk rock element. For them to get to American Idiot, which obviously blew up again as far as like, the second coming of this band and blowing them up even more. But like American Idiot would not have happened without Warning, and without Warning would have been no Nimrod and so on and so forth. It just kind of trickles down. So in that era between Dookie and American Idiot, there is a perfect evolution of the band, which a lot of people probably didn't like, just due to the fact that like Dookie was successful and then there was the pressure of Insomniac. And then they had to kind of build up themselves as artists to get kind of back to this American Idiot fame, which, like you said, they probably didn't even expect to blow up off that album, but they were just in such a perfect time when kind of punk kids and like kids my age were really kind of starting to really understand the view of politics and kind of seeing how kind of the way of the world, and like me being now 32 and being in high school when that album came out, like kind of seeing like, wow, like the world isn't as like rad as I thought. Like there's some real shit going on. And like though I crap on like the American Idiot album quite a bit, because it's when I stopped liking them, like as far as like following them.
I feel a lot of people did that too.
Yeah, but like that record was solid. It was just, that's when I was like, okay, one of my favorite bands is now getting political. This shouldn't be happening, but it needed to happen.
Oh yeah, and
as much as I didn't want it to, it needed to.
And I think too, like it ended up being good for them. But like I think the political part, and also too, like I also get it. Where look at if you were a fan of like, just say even like say Insomniac, like say you like the dark punk parts of it, you may not be into a 10-minute fucking rock ballad. You know what I mean? Like there are parts on that where it's like, I get it. Like, and I like American Idiot, but I'll also be honest, like that was the album that got me into them. I don't remember the last time I listened to that one. Like it's one of those things where I don't hate that record. It's just, I don't listen to it like I did. Like when I was 12 or 13, holy shit, I like destroyed my disc. Like I listened to it constantly, but like, now, like I can't. It's been years since I listened to that album front to back. I'll every now and then throw a song on, but like I just don't revisit it that much. I feel like I just like the older shit more now. But I do look at it though, and I go, I can't blame people who weren't a fan of what they did later on. Like, because there's some bands where I'm just like, that person's being an asshole because they don't like them, because like that kind of the sellout thing. Like, oh, you don't like that record. Like I feel like there's people out there, and you mentioned this. It goes back to Insomniac where. There's people who thought they sold out who had if Insomniac came out on Lookout Records instead of whichever major label they were on, Reprise or whoever put that out, they would have liked it. Like, had that not came out on a major label, there were punk kids who were calling them fucking sellouts who would have loved Insomniac. They would have fucking loved that record if it was not on a fucking major label. Now,
Absolutely.
So there's people like that who I go, you just don't, like there were people who didn't like Insomniac just because it's on a major label. And I go, you're a fucking asshole if that's the thing. Now on the flip side of that though, I totally get if you don't like that We Are the Waiting or whatever it is on American Idiot, if you liked the old punk stuff. Like I get it. It's different. Like I can't piss on someone who doesn't like that. I'm fine with it. I like it enough. But I'm not mad that somebody, like, I don't think that's irrational to be like, I'm just not into what they did on American Idiot or even after that, later on, if what you did like was the old punk stuff. But the flip side of that is you can't be the dickhead who, like, I don't like Dookie because it was popular. It's like, I don't care how big it is. Like, that record's just fucking good. Like, had it not been on a major, same with that, like, not just Insomniac, like Dookie too. It's like, had that not been on a major label, there just would have been one of the, like, it would have been Lookout Records' best-selling album of the year. Like, it may not have went diamond, but it would have fucking sold a bunch, and punk kids would have loved it, and they would have, like, sold out little theaters and shit. They just never would have been huge, but it's like, those kids who were shunning them would have liked that had it just not been under a fucking major label, which is, it's crazy to think of now. Like, when in 2020, you laugh at that shit. Like, people don't really care anymore. no one cares. Your favorite band has a fucking Patreon now. Like, people just fucking give them money in all these different ways. Like, no one really cares if bands are making money. And it's like, now it's a silly thing. But at the time, that fucking destroyed bands. Like, I mean, and it obviously didn't destroy Green Day, but like another band I was talking about a few weeks ago on the podcast about albums coming out in 1995 was Jawbreaker's Dear You. And that actually, they were on the brink of breaking up, but that record, people who went to see them would turn their backs and like sit down on the ground when they saw them live if they played songs on that album. Like shit like that, where like they were being disowned.
So dumb.
Like, you're disowned because you're on a major label. We're disowning you because you don't need a day job. Like, that whole thing. And I don't know, like, maybe someone's listening to this who was around in that era. Like, I would like to talk to people, because it's not that people were well, I guess they were maybe in the minority of that, but it was like those punk kids who, like, I would love to know what the mindset was. I would feel like most of them now would just say, I was a dumb young teenager and I was like bothered that like the band I loved was now like being put in the mainstream. But it's like some of the extremes of that, I'm just like, God damn, really? Like, you like to affect bands that way? I'm like, that's just fucking nuts.
Like, when it comes to music and like the quote unquote idea of selling out, I don't think that pisses off more kids within like a subculture than it does like punk rock kids.
It's the only
and
genre,
probably,
dude.
Like, and maybe like hip hop and rap.
You
Because
think
it
it
broke
happens
out
there?
of the underground. Maybe nowhere near as much as punk rock. But I think when like an underground like artist breaks through, there's going to be like, oh, they lost that edge. They lost, they lost the heart of it. Now it's all about the money because now they're making the money to buy these things. I think it happens way more in the punk rock community, and it sucks because it's such like almost a staple now to call someone a sellout. Like, well, at least it did like in the 90s and 2000s. But like, yeah, I think those two genres, the punk rock more importantly, like that term got thrown around way too much and it annoyed the piss out of me.
It really, I mean, and that's a good point too, with like both genres. It's like, it's such a limiting thing where it's only a few, where if you asked most, but like if you told someone who was just like say you go back to the 90s and just someone was a fan of like the fucking Backstreet Boys, like nobody cared if that shit was on, you know what I mean? Like, if you tried to explain to someone who was a fan of like that like shitty pop music and boy bands, like, do you care? Like, for one, they probably couldn't even tell you what label put it out. Like, they wouldn't even know. Like, they wouldn't give a shit. And if you told them like you don't like an album because like it came out on this major, it's like, what the fuck does that, like, what do you mean? Like, what do you, like, people can't grasp that. I've heard just musicians like do interviews with that. Another one, Laura Jane Grace with Against Me. Like, I've heard her do interviews with like people from the mainstream who like aren't from like punk music, and she just talks about that because, she doesn't get it so much now, but when they signed to a major with New Wave, like, I don't know, 10, 15, not 10 years ago, like 15 years ago now.
Yeah, right.
Like, all the shit they got for that. And, it's just like that becomes this whole thing that like it just fucking haunts you. But it's like what I was getting at is like in those interviews, she'll explain that to people who aren't from the scene, and it just makes zero sense. They're like, wait, what do you mean? Like they did like what do you mean they were mad because? And then even before that, like that heard them signing from No Idea to Fat Records. She's like, there were people who were pissed that we signed to Fat. That was selling out. There's people who thought fucking going from No Idea Records to fucking Fat Records was selling out. Like, we're not, like, we're gonna fucking, it's like, it's fucking stupid.
Any idea of people thinking like having the possibility to make money off of what you love doing is considered selling out is so damn dumb. Like I, without like name dropping, there was a local skateboarder who was like, pretty well known, many years younger than me at the time. Years later, ended up becoming endorsed and getting all these sponsorships and this and that, and like kind of became the biggest name like in the area. And there was people like dogging on him just because he now he made money skateboarding, like doing what he loved. And I'm like, how can you hate this kid for being good and ended up being successful and making money off of what he loves. Like, what do you love? Wouldn't you love to make money doing that? And they're like, well, yeah, but it's different. No, it's not. It's the exact same thing. Like, and if you're getting mad at someone in like the music scene that is making money off of their passion project, probably, like, you know what? I'm saying it right now. You're a damn Joser.
That is some. You know what, dude? I just want to send this out to anyone who's listening right now, who's like, I don't know, they're probably like 48 years old right now, who like in the 90s were like the people like at Gilman Street who like ban Green Day, talk shit, like you go to your zines and you write terrible things and you shun them and you rip up flyers that you see of them, you do all these things. You're retroactively a Joser. Like, even if you're like selling insurance now and not fucking into like punk, like retroactively you're a fucking Joser for doing that shit. Like, fuck you. Fuck you guys. Yeah, right? Like, they don't even care now. Like, they're probably like in their late, like those people are probably like in their late 40s now. Cause I mean, Green Day are like in their late 40s. These people are like pushing 50. They probably don't even listen to the genre. They probably don't remember half the shit they did, but you're a fucking Joser for like shunning Jawbreaker and Green Day in your fucking zines. And that whole Bay Area seems to be one of the worst because both of them come from the Bay Area. And that whole Gilman's another, which, listen, Gilman is legendary, and like, I'm not shitting on it. I fucking have taken selfies outside of there. They were sadly not open, but I drove out of my way to go there just to take a selfie outside of it. Like, it's a legendary place. But with that said, like, the whole way that they treated Green Day after, like, I get the whole major label thing, but it's like, and here's the other thing. Gilman has almost closed a couple times, and Green Day has like financed it to fucking stay open. And like, the irony of that when you're talking about like, we're banning you, you're not allowed and stuff, it's like, now they're the reason you're basically open. And the reason that's how I know what Gilman fucking Street is. Like, later on, I learned about, see, I wasn't as fucking cool as you. You start with like Operation Ivy, which just isn't fair. Like, you start at like the best part. Like, I didn't learn about that shit till later.
See, but like, I didn't know what I was listening to. Like, my brother's just playing music.
You were a punk motherfucker, dude.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I just thought it was music. I didn't know what the fuck punk was. And my introduction to the word punk was like fucking Adam song from Blink. And I was like, okay, like, this is a cool band. And someone's like, oh, they're a punk rock band. I'm like, oh, I think I know some other punk bands. And I'm like going back to my brothers, like, hey, punk bands, what are they?
Can I just say, though, I mean, if you're comparing the guy who said that Adam's song was punk compared to Operation Ivy, that guy might have been a Joser. I don't know who it was, but I'm just throwing it out there. If you
was like in sixth grade.
Not you, whoever said it. You're not a
Joser.
Was
in sixth grade.
Well, that doesn't matter. He's still. This is like those people from the 90s, dude. They're retroactively Josers. I'm attacking a guy who was fucking 11 years old who said Adam's song was punk. And this is coming from someone who loves Blink-182. That dude's a fucking Joser. Nah.
Oh boy. Boy.
I'm just fucking with him. Though it is though. It's so funny now, dude. You look back at that stuff, and it's just, we're in such a different time. And I get, like, I've been like, I'm sure there's bands where if I thought about it, like, I was like, oh, it kind of, you go, I knew that band before they were big, and it's like everyone kind of has that feeling, but I've never had such a visceral reaction that some people did to like the whole selling out of like the 90s and stuff, and to the point where it did affect Insomniac. I mean, Billy Joe has said this, and it's like the fact that it was that big is just fucking nuts now, But I mean, that being called a sellout, and then the pressure of putting out another record and so soon, and also the fact that, too, you forget they're in their early 20s. I think Billy was like 23 when Insomniac came out. They were all, Mike and Trey were around the same age, so it's like, actually Trey might have even been a little younger, but it's like they're all like early 20s, and you're like in one of the biggest bands in the world. But then there's also, so it's like you have that side of you, but then you also have the other side where all these people who were bringing you up on the first two albums in the community and the scene that you grew up in and were a part of are now shunning you. So you kind of have this very weird, like, where is your home base? You know what I mean? Like, the people who originally brought you up and were the reason you were established and really got signed to begin with. Here's the other thing about that, which people don't think about. The reason that an A&R person would come and look at them play, or that a major label would want them, was because they were popular in their scene. Like, the whole thing about like the people who would shun them for selling out, that when they were going to their shows and buying their albums and stuff, That's why a major label wanted them in the first place. They were getting
Yeah,
popular.
you are the reason.
They really are. Like, you think about that and you go, dude, if an A&R guy showed up to fucking Gilman Street and 3 people were there, they wouldn't sign Green Day. They wouldn't fucking
and like one
sign
of them
them.
is their uncle.
Yeah, dude, fucking like Billy Joe's uncle's in the fucking and one of the guys I'm counting as a sound man. That's one of the 3.
Yeah.
Like that shit. Like they wouldn't sign them. They signed them because they were getting big in their scene. But then you have the whole thing that established you is now gone. They're all calling you fucking sellouts. You don't really feel, they probably didn't feel at home with major labels and like a lot of the radio rock bands that, you know, they were playing with. So it's like, you're kind of in this weird area on top of, like I was saying, you're in your early 20s and you're trying to navigate all this. And I think what you get is Insomniac. So that's, you know, that's kind of what you end up getting out of it. So I guess what we do now, like we told the fine people, fucking
an hour ago.
Yeah, an hour ago. I wasn't gonna say it, but yeah, an hour ago. And now we're gonna go track by track down this motherfucker. And
there we go.
We are gonna start here. Actually, let me get my notes real quick, folks. I'm not even gonna edit this part out. Let me get my fucking notes here. Fuck editing.
Well, while you're getting your notes, let's just remember this album has 14 songs, and it's like a half hour long. Like, and almost every song is like 2.5 minutes or under. Like, it is such a good punk album.
Oh, fuck it. Oh, dude, like it really is. It's like, it's just a fast, dark, like that's the other thing. Like we were just talking about, like
it's such a breeze.
We like, and then we'll get into it, but like, I guess we kind of explained ourselves when we were originally talking about like how this felt darker and stuff. Then we get into like, yeah, everyone who used to like you fucking hates you. You're not allowed to play at Gilman anymore. Like you're on a major label and you feel soulless. Like maybe that's why it was dark. I think we explained.
Yeah, right.
I think we might have explained it ourselves. Like maybe that's why this record
the
is.
Case.
Yeah, dude. I think you know what? Time to go fucking home. I think we cracked the case of Insomniac. But
all right.
Let's start with the opener. Armitage. Is it Armitage Shanks? I never know how to say that first word. Armitage.
Yeah, I say Armitage.
It's a fucking weird. It's a weird word. We can establish that. Might be a weird word, but I mean, it's a great opener. I mean, from the beginning, like that drum intro from Trey is just fucking solid. Mm-hmm. Like to open the record that way.
It's great because, like we were saying earlier, like this album is a great continuation of Dookie, and this song like is the epitome of that.
It's a continuation like of the best parts of Dookie too. That's the other thing. Like this song, in my opinion, it sounds like it'd be on Dookie because it emulates like the best. Like not even that it sounds like one specific song on Dookie. It just has all of the best parts of it, like the best elements of it.
Yeah, and even that drum intro, I remember back in like high school, and like this is when my friends like were more like into like, you know, American Idiot, Green Day, and like I remember hearing American Idiot and not really caring about the song itself, and then someone like played the beginning of it, not the beginning, but you know, like Trey does a drum part in American Idiot that's very similar.
Oh, like right after the first chorus, I think. It's like right at first chorus.
Because I remember hearing that, and at the time I'm like, he did that before. That's in another song. No, it's not. I'm like, yeah, no, it's definitely somewhere. I know this. And it did not dawn on me where I heard it from until I was like, you know what? Let's do this review on this album. Let's start from the beginning. And I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, I remember this conversation from high school.
Dude, that's I never thought of that before, but I know exactly what drum part you're talking about, American Idiot, and you're fucking spot on. I've never made the connection.
It's not identical by any means, but it's close.
Here's the thing. It may not be identical, but it's like the flanger on fucking Bored to Death, where you're like, it's not feeling this, but you just did the same thing that you did before. You didn't. I mean, it's fucking Ice Ice Baby and Under Pressure, really. I mean, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's maybe not, like maybe he hits one, like maybe it's not, I don't even know, like I can't talk fucking music theory as far as drums go, but like maybe he doesn't hit on the 4 on the fucking American Idiot one and he does on the Armitage Shanks one, but it's the same fucking beat basically. Which I'm not shitting on it. It's good.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's just funny that like I remember back in the day being like, oh, this song sucks, but like this drum part sounds familiar, and not even connecting the dots until doing this.
Yeah, it's like that's insane. I never thought of that, but it also makes you think like Trey Cool is one that I like. Even me, like I'm gonna call him an underrated drummer, but even from my standpoint, because I like him, but I don't think of him a lot. Like when I think of like really good drummers, he doesn't pop in my head. But as we're talking about some of the shit he does and like he makes this song, he really makes the record, because that's the first thing you hear. Like he fucking comes on and you're like, oh shit, like it sets you up for just a solid fucking record.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, and any time I listen to a new album from a band that I like, if the first song doesn't pull me in immediately, not that I'm going to shit on the rest of the album, but it takes my immersion completely out of it.
Oh, dude, 100. Dude, like there's album intros are like the most important thing. Like and I think that's for most people though too, honestly, because that's the first thing. I mean, unless you hear like the single, that's probably the first thing you're going to hear off of it. So your impression right off the bat is going to be that.
Yeah, it has to be good. Like, not saying like this has happened, but like if like say this album came out, right, and then to follow it up, like say Green Day, like the first song, say on like Fake Nimrod was like a really weird like
Good Riddance
acoustic. I mean, I like that song, but I guess maybe it's like.
But I mean, imagine if that was track one.
If Good Riddance, if that was track one, that would have completely like took me out of my element as far as like, oh, I'm getting psyched. Acoustic, really?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great song, regardless.
Oh yeah.
But it probably would have taken my immersion out of it, and this song does not do that when it comes to following Dookie.
And I think the other thing too with intros, like it doesn't even have to be that it's a bad song, but even you can do something like that where it might be a good song, but if that's how because you're setting the tone for the record. That's why I always say this, my favorite album openers, all of them, if I was to write you a list of my favorite album openers, every single one starts in E major, they all have pick slides in them, and they're all like fucking probably like 150 BPM. Actually, fuck that, they're probably more like 170 BPM. Like it's fast, it's in E major. That's why fucking the Get Up Kids Holiday to me, like if you're asking me to dissect like if you want, how do you open a record? Like I'm going off on a little tangent. I'll keep this short. But if you're gonna ask me like how do you make a great opening song, I'm gonna play that for you. Those motherfuckers start with a pick slide. They don't even waste time. They're like, fuck you, before there's one chord of music. They don't even hit an E chord first. There's a fucking pick slide.
Straight pick slide.
Just right away, and it's like, there you go. Like, that's another one where, like, look at, I love all the songs on that record, but had they started, like, I'll Catch You, the last song on the record. If that was the first song on the record, it'd be weird as fuck and would give you this weird, like it just would. It would be, I was talking to the dudes in Midtown when I interviewed them for Save the World, Lose the Girl, and I forget what song it was, but I think it was Another Boy. Their producer, Mark Trombino, wanted Another Boy to be the opener off that record. And I'm like, that's a terrible fucking idea. Yeah, like that's a bad. You couldn't do that. Like that's a good song, but Just Rock and Roll has to open that. You need that fucking energy.
It's funny. I did listen to that episode, and I remember hearing that and being like, really?
Yeah, get the fuck out, Mark Trombino.
That's what he wanted, but like, I like that song, but it's perfectly placed where it is in the album. Like,
no, that's what I'm saying. It's not even a thing that the album opener is like that it has to be a shitty song. It can be a good song, but if you place the wrong one as the opener, it will just, because it sets the mood. So it's like if you're putting something weird or like slow or like I'm not a big fan of intros. You know when they do like instrumentals,
like a 30-second like instrumental.
Yeah, fuck that shit. I hate that shit.
I'll say this just because of the subgenre of it. I love when like easy core bands do it, because usually it starts with some really chill, and then they usually come in with some rad breakdown.
You know what though? I will give that a pass because that is a style. Like that is a thing in that genre. Like cuz you are absolutely right. And I will even give that a pass because in that genre itself, it does work in what it's doing. Like it does serve a purpose.
Yeah, I guess if you did like a really fast, like 35-second to a minute, like pop punk rock intro, I mean, some bands can probably pull it off, but like, I don't know. I guess I'd need something to really like, I would need something really rad to make me commit to like that fast of an intro song from like a pop punk rock band, I guess.
Oh, fuck yeah. I mean, and that's what,
yeah, you're right.
Getting back to, I mean, the song, it's like that's what makes Armitage. I'm probably say it like 5 different ways because really I don't know that I've ever said the song title out loud. Actually, I don't know if you do that, but like since doing the radio show the last few years, I realized how many song titles, like not just of Green Day, but just of bands that I've never said out loud. That I go, how the fuck do you even say? Like I'm just butchering them. I'm like, I guess I never said a lot of song titles out loud before. Like it just sounds weird.
Like, I had the cassette of this. Like, my brother gave me a cassette of this album, like, way back in the day. And I would just listen to it, and, like, all the song titles were on the cassette. But, like, I just knew, like, what songs I liked, and I would just, like, try to fast forward and play until I found the song. And I didn't really know the song titles, because once I got the CD, like, it just said Green Day Insomniac, a burned copy of the CD. So, like, it didn't even have the song titles on it. So, like, without the cassette at that time, I wouldn't have known, like, any of these song titles until I, like, gone back and listened to it and been like, oh, so that's the name of this song. Okay. And then never say it again until now.
Yeah, no, that's what I do. And, I mean, going down the list, too, I mean, like, is there anything else on this song you kind of want to, like, touch on before we get to the second one?
I mean, it's a good song. Like, there's really, I don't know. It just makes me feel good, like listening to this, like as a kid listening to Dookie and then listening to this and being like, yep, I like this. I like this album. I like the sound. I like the speed. I like the vibe. Lyrics, even though as a kid I couldn't really understand him because the way he sings is so interesting.
I still don't know what he's saying half the time. I'll be honest. I still don't know half the fucking time what he's singing on half their songs.
Yeah, but like hearing it, and this is like a terrible take on it as far as like we're reviewing an album and we don't know any of the lyrics or whatever. But no, it was just the entire vibe of the song. I could not have picked probably a better song off this album to be like, you know what, this song should be number 1. This song, no, it's Armor Takes Shanks, or however you say it.
It's like if we're talking, it's probably one of my favorite songs off the record. Not in my top 3, but if we were doing like top 5, I would probably put this at either 5 or 4. Like this is a solid song.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I mean the before we get to the second one, I mean, I guess the other thing I would add to it, and I actually meant to talk about earlier, like fucking you talked about it way earlier on, and I meant to say something, but like a dynamic that works really well in Green Day, and you hear it on this song. Oh, you were talking about the it works perfect with this because you were talking about the production, how everything comes through, and Mike's bass comes through, and how he's not playing just root notes. What people may not realize, and I may be biased because I'm a bass player, so I like to write music this way, but what Green Day does really well is if you're listening, because you can hear the clarity of that record, I think part of it is Billy Joe was playing simple power chords on a lot of those songs. There's not 50 layered guitars. There's one guitar.
Yes, he was. It's fucking awesome that it's so simple musically as far as guitar playing.
Oh, dude, he's playing, like, when you talk about 3-chord punk, if you listen to that, you can hear him play that. The reason that it's like the real push on there is Mike Dirnt's bass playing. Like, he's not, like, if he was only, like, people who don't really know music, like, it may not make sense what I'm saying, but if he was just playing, here, I'll put it this way, if he was playing like Mark Hoppus and he was just kind of playing root notes and playing like straight eights, it would sound total. Green Day would then sound like Blink-182, I guess, but it would not sound like people don't realize that it's like the way that he's playing and like that movement and shit is normally what, like, not that he's playing the notes that a lead guitar would, but he's kind of doing what you couldn't do if they were a quartet and you had a lead guitar in there. He couldn't do the shit he was playing. It wouldn't. Less Than Jake's another one like that, where like his Roger's bass playing is so good because he's not playing up against 2 or 3 guitars. There's one clean guitar that's just playing chords. And that gives all this freedom and space for the bass to really do shit that people aren't. Because really, Mike Dirnt has to be, he's up there, I think, one of the best like punk rock bass players. Like he really,
Absolutely.
He's fucking good. His groove, and then his tone too. I think he plays Gibson Ripper, is it? I think he plays. He's not like a Fender
something
guy.
like that. No, yeah, it's definitely a Gibson. I don't know the model
I think
off the top of my
it
head,
might
but
be
it's
a
definitely
Ripper.
Gibson, and yeah, his tone is so good because it's not super trebly, but it's not super warm. It's this really nice fine medium, and it's a tone I really like because it doesn't sound bad against the distorted guitar with like with the warmth of it, but also like there's not like it's got a lot of good mids because there's not like enough treble on it where it's almost like it cuts through too much or it almost overrides the guitar in a weird way.
No, I was actually about to say you were just because not the highs, but I think you're dead on with the mids because what I was about to say is he's not that punchy, that would be part of it. His highs aren't. He doesn't have these crazy highs, so it's like the bass isn't really punchy. It comes through, but like the attack of it isn't like it doesn't hurt your ears. It doesn't sound weird. It doesn't come in odd. He's in this really good pocket of not being too, it's not too deep bass where you can't hear it at all and you can only feel it, but he's also not so high up that it's just like you can hear it, but it just sounds like a really like fucking high punchy notes and just almost, like just isn't fun to hear. Like sometimes there are bass playing sometimes like I love Ernie Ball's Stingrays. They're one of my favorite basses, but there's times where people play those in songs and the highs are just too much for it. And that punchiness comes through not in a good way. And he has this really good in between where that he's playing like you're talking about where like the mids are just fucking sweet. Like he's right there in the mids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, he fucking solid bass playing on this song. And it was just something I wanted to bring up because you brought that up earlier with production. And I think you're absolutely right. Where they shine on this is Billy Joe, like you can hear, like if you want to play if you were learning guitar and you want to just start playing along to records, this is a really good one to do it because you can hear it. Like that one guitar that he's playing, like it's not so fucked up and distorted that you can't tell what he's playing. There's not a bunch of guitars over it. Like it's so simple that like if you're just trying to learn chords and just really follow along to songs, this is a great record for that. Really good record for it.
Yeah. After listening to this record, like again, and like breaking it down, like I haven't done this in 15, almost 20 years, where I actually want to go back and try to learn an entire album on guitar.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I want to do that with this because like I never like formally, quote unquote, formally learned or like tried to like learn a bunch of songs off this album. It was just like brain stew because of that one riff. And that's pretty much it. But there's songs on here that we'll get to later that like I didn't know that like subconsciously were like influences on like the types of songs I wanted to write. But we'll get there when we get there.
Oh, and I like too, like with his guitar playing, and we'll get to the second song, I swear. But like something that I like about Green Day chord progressions, definitely with Billy, is he'll do the 3-chord punk thing. But if you really look, he likes to do like there's always this little added thing. Like he'll just be playing 3 chords, but like in the last measure, they'll throw in. I think She is kind of like I'm trying to think of how to say this in words. Like I know what I'm trying to say, but putting it in words is kind of difficult. But they'll play it straight and play the 3-chord thing, but then they'll do like the da na 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 na, like just throw in this shit at the end that like you know what I mean. So you're not just playing a 1-4-5. You're not just playing a chord progression like that just straight through. They're throwing these little things in at the end of there. That, I mean, it adds to the music, it pushes it forward and stuff, and it makes it more than just, like, because that can be difficult too. Like playing as a trio, the opposite of doing it so simple like that is that it can be really fucking boring. Like if you're just playing power chords on a guitar, it could be bland on there. Like I said, like with Mike, if he was just playing like fucking root notes, like it would sound bland. But, the way Mike is playing bass and the way that Billy's kind of adding these like, kind of resolutions, I guess you would call it more than anything, and kind of like cadences with the progressions, it adds something to it. And I think this record in particularly, they do that very well. That's something that they do on this album quite a bit. But moving on now to Brat, I like right away the thing that gets me on this, and I'm always a fool for it, is songs that just start with vocals. I love that this is the second track. His voice comes in and it punches you in the fucking face, and it goes on. It picks up right where Armitage kind of leaves off, and like it's another one where it's like, yep, this is gonna fucking hit you in the face. This is a fast punk number. It's fun. Like I was talking about earlier. I mean, the fucking songs. I mean, and it's sarcastic. I assume, and I think it's also kind of a little like take on, you know, like I guess like rich kids and shit, but like just sitting around waiting for your parents to die so you get their inheritance. Like you listen to the lyrics and they're dark, but they're funny. Like, you know, it goes, I mean, like as far as, I feel like I drag them up and everything, but like the Replacements being one of my favorite bands, and I know being a band that has influenced Billy Joe so much, and all of them, I know that was like when they started out, like the Replacements and Husker Du were like two of the biggest bands that Mike and Billy were into, and kind of got them, you know, to become friends. But like I just know how much the Replacements and Paul Westerberg's songwriting, like how much like his affected Green Day, which a lot of people probably don't realize, just because there's a lot of Green Day fans who've just never heard the Replacements, where the Replacements don't sound like Green Day, and Green Day don't sound like the Replacements like dead on. It's the songwriting, it's the way he writes his lyrics, it's kind of the attitude and shit that he kind of borrows or is influenced by from that. But this is one of those ones where it reminds me of the Replacements, where it's this subject where it's like, if you just listen to the song, you don't pay attention to the lyrics, you wouldn't think anything of it. But if you actually look at the lyrics, you're kind of like, that's interesting. Like that's different.
Yeah, a lot of this album, like now that I'm older and like I can actually like really like understand the lyrics, like as a kid, like I didn't really like, I loved the music of this record, but this song in particular, like I loved the music, and I would kind of like fake mouth the songs. Like, I knew the song had like mom and dad in it because it said, you know, a couple times.
Can I say this real quick? Up until I think it was today, I looked up the lyrics. I thought he said they have hangovers from hell. And just about a day ago did I realize that's not what he's saying.
Oh yeah, no, trust me. I got something else later. But yeah, like,
oh God.
I knew in the chorus, like I knew what the chorus was, but like it, like because of the verses were so weird to me as a kid, like it didn't really make sense. I just kind of would like fake the words, and then the chorus would come in, and then I would sing the chorus, and then that was it. I would just fake it, not knowing what the words were. But now kind of looking back at it, like listening to it and breaking it down, like, yeah, like it's lyrically such a weird, dark song. And it gives me such a great vibe because of the lyric, like the subject matter with the music. Cause like that's stuff that I always wanted to do musically, was like write these really upbeat songs that have like darker lyrical elements. And now I'm not a lyricist by any means, but like when I was trying to, that would be kind of like the vibe I'd want to give, was dark to like really fun, dark lyrics to really fun music. And this song really does it, because like as a kid I just didn't know, and as I got older and then listened to it, I was like, man, this song is like what I wanted to do with music, but like didn't know how to do it.
You know,
and because it's funny and it's dark, but yeah, it's just got a great vibe to it.
Like this is I guess just total speculation between you and I, because we don't know. I mean, I guess I could call up my close personal friend Billy Joe, but I won't. I'm sure he's busy. But like talking about how like we can't really tell what the lyrics are, and just how you were like mimicking that, you know, like kind of getting the gist of it. Do you feel like, and I'm kind of starting to think about this, I never had before, but like on a song, I guess we can go specifically with this song. Do you feel like he had a melody in his head before the like, which do you think came first, the music or the lyrics? Because I get this feeling that because it meshes so well, but just like the way that it works well with the song, I feel like he almost just had a vocal melody in his head and then came up with the lyrics after, because the way that it like grooves with the music, the way it fits in there. Not that the lyrics are bad. I don't mean this as a bad thing, but they were almost an afterthought. Not in a bad way, but in the way where they didn't come first. He had in, whatever you call it, there's a lot of musicians who will do that, who do like a scratch track before they even have the lyrics, where they just do, you just say gibberish. You just go, this is my melody, and da-da-da-da-da, like whatever. And I feel like he might have did that. This might be one of those songs where he did that. Like, it's speculation, but do you see what I'm talking about?
100%, because I tried doing that before, like when I was writing songs like with my band. Like, I don't know the lyrics, I don't know what they'd be, but I feel like with this riff or this lead, they would kind of go like that. And I guarantee not only does he do that a lot, but like I'm sure he himself even has trouble trying to like fit lyrics in these melodies, because there's times where like not only does he sing like really fast, but his tone is so unique, like his vocal range and like the way he does it, or like if you're reading these lyrics, like they don't, like the melody doesn't flow well, like if you're just reading them. But like when you hear it, there's a lot of times where like he's almost like hiding words within a line because it doesn't sound like that in the delivery.
Oh, totally. You know what another one that kind of makes me think of that is, I for some reason remember this when I bought Nimrod. I had never heard, I only heard the singles, but I remember looking at the liner notes before listening to it, and I remember the Grouch just hit, which ended up being the Grouch is probably one of my favorite songs on Nimrod. I think it's a very underrated one.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones where it's like what you're talking about. I read the lyrics, and it intrigued me before I heard it, because I'm like, well, this is interesting. How is this in a song? I'm like, how would this fit in a song? And then you listen to it, I almost feel like that's another example of that, where I go, he had a vocal melody in his head that worked really well, and I feel like the lyrics came after. Like, the way that they fit in there, like even the way he's like, the world owes me, so fuck, I'm not even going to try to do it, but the world owes me, so fuck you, like that part and stuff. Like, the way he has it, that was a vocal melody before he ever had those words. Like, that was, I feel like he had that idea. And another one, too, would be not Green Day, but Fall Out Boy, I feel like, does this, too, where there's songs where you go, that vocal melody, like Sugar We're Going Down's like that, where you can't tell what the fuck he's saying half the time, but the reason people like it and you can like fucking mush mouth along to it and pretend like you know what the fuck you're singing is just because that vocal melody, you have that first, and then like the lyrics were an afterthought. Like it, and not once again, not a bad way. It's just it didn't start with some lyrics. I don't feel like he wrote the lyrics to Brat and then sat down to the guitar and tried to fit it in a song. I feel like the song came and then he tried fitting lyrics into the song. Like that's the vibe I get from it.
I'd 100% agree with you on that.
And also, I got to say too that the going back and giving more compliments to Mike's bass playing, the little bass runs he does at the end of the choruses on Brat, like that little dun-dun-dun, is so fucking good. Like that's another one of those ones where if you had 3 guitars over it, or like the guitars were ringing out and shit, would not work. As a trio, like that's another song where they just the whole time they're on fire. That's a great one where it's an example of just, because there's a few songs on here where it's like, oh, like we were talking about earlier, and we'll get back into Brain Stew. There's obviously more than one guitar and shit. There's a couple of these where even if they layered it to make it a little louder, he didn't do different guitar tracks. There's not like a lead and a rhythm and a second rhythm. Like maybe they doubled some guitar in a couple places just to make it beefier. Yeah. But there's not a bunch of, he didn't like do a bunch of studio tricks. Like this is a record that you record and then could go play live. Like this is not a record where it's like, we can't replicate this. It's like, nah, fucking 3 people can replicate this.
Yeah. I would love, and I wrote this down like for like the ending, but like, I'll just say it now because it's brought up. I would have loved to like, if they ever did it, if they did like, say for example, this year, they did a 25-year anniversary of Insomniac, like live stream or whatever.
Oh, hell
like,
yeah.
It's one of the, because like if you watch, they have a 4th member kind of behind like the amps, like, or that second guitar player they have now or whatever. Like they have him to kind of fill in things. They don't need that for this record. No. You can literally just put the 3 of them out there and it's going to sound identical, because you don't have to worry about a guitar lead with a rhythm. You don't have to worry about that. It is just the 3 guys, and they can play every part without needing extra members, and it'd be so much fun to watch.
You have me thinking now, because I've never seen them do this, but I mean I know they've played Dookie front to back quite a few, which I think is fucking awesome. Like they've done that multiple times in their career where they'll just sometimes not even for an anniversary. I think they've just played shows before I've seen where they're just like, yeah, fuck it, we'll play Dookie front to back, which I think is amazing. But I want to see video. When it like you get there, just like, yeah, fuck it, we're gonna. You remember that album that sold a fuck ton of records? Like, remember that album that everybody loved? Yeah, we're gonna play that front to back. We'll just do that. Like, I think we'll just do that. But like now, I want to go watch video of it because you bring up a good point. Because I feel like that may be the same thing with this. If you tried to play this album front to back, like in a live setting, you might fuck it up having like. Because they don't even have one guitars. I think they have like 2 or 3 backup guitars, and I think a dude who plays keys, maybe not on every song, but like if you go, there are other members up there. There are a few, and once again, it's a thing that bands do when they play arenas like that. Like it is a big thing of filling out the sound. Like there's a lot of bands who will tell you that.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like it's not even shitting on them, but it's like if you have too much going on, like if you listen to Brat, if you had like a live setting and like we're going to add like a solo that wasn't in there and, you know, there's like keys under it and shit. It will take away. Like, I don't want to do too much. This isn't shitting on, but a criticism I have that kind of goes along with this. If you see the starting line now, they have a keyboard player when they're live. And I mean, on later songs, it makes sense. Like the Direction songs, some of the Based on True Story songs. Now, there are some, though, that they play on Say It Like You Mean It, and I'm not shitting on them. I've seen them live multiple times. I always enjoy it. So this is not like a bashing starting line. But it takes away, honestly. There's times where I saw them live where he was playing keys on some of the older songs, and they also kind of slowed it down a little. And I'm like, you just took out, like, the things that, like, you just took out why I like this song. Like, sometimes that stuff adds to it, but you can also take away from it. And I think this record, you bring up a great point saying that, this record would hurt had they, which also the other thing being their second record on a major label, thank God that, you know, there weren't like people at the label who were like, we need to like, you know, we're going to really produce this and you need this on this record. Like, cause here's the other thing, for as much as people were shitting on, like we were talking about the sellouts and all that and major labels in the 90s, I don't feel like they were really fucking with Green Day in the studio. This doesn't sound like a commercial record. Like, if you ask me, they were pretty fucking laid back. Like, this is the cover's not like that's the other thing when we're talking about too about the reaction of being so big. In a lot of ways, I think Green Day purposely tried to do this record and not make it mainstream friendly. Like, they didn't go the way of, well, now that we're big, we have to like do this and that. They went the opposite way and were like, well, no, we're punks and the album cover shows that, we all the songs fucking curse in it. Like none of them are really, they're not jolly songs. They're not super happy or uplifting. Like they didn't play into that, they didn't play the game, but you also have to give credit to the major labels who went, fuck it, like put it out. Like they released it. Like you got to give them that much credit. You're like, I feel like that album could have came out on an indie label and would have sounded weird. Like, they really didn't make them do anything. Really, like you said, they just had Dookie money. That's it. They just had better production. Like outside of that, the label didn't really fuck with them.
No, like I feel like the label were still trying to figure out what they had.
Yeah, that might be true because you are. And the other thing too is they might just be happy because at that time, like we said, it was so soon after Dookie that Dookie was still selling so many fucking records that they're probably just like, we don't give a shit what you guys do. Like, it's just going to sell. Like, you could do a fucking polka record if you want. Like, we don't care. Like, this album Dookie is still, like, but you got to think about it in 1995, because I think about it, like I said, I don't remember the album release of Dookie. I was too young, but I do remember American Idiot, and they were releasing singles for that for literally years. I think that that album came out, I think, in 2004, and they were still releasing singles in 2006. They were more minor. Like, they did, like, the music video for Jesus of Suburbia, and obviously that really wasn't getting radio airplay. But, like, the video got played and stuff. Like, they were minor singles. They're one of those things. Like, a lot of records are like that where, like, there's 2 songs that are fucking massive, and you forget that there were a couple others that were singles.
Well, this record, it's full of minor singles.
Yeah, dude, I would say, like, outside of, I'm a fucking moron. I'm sorry. Wait. I'm a fucking moron, folks. Kyle, you didn't know that, but I was we have sensor lights in this room and they just went off, so I had to move back and try to turn them on. But I was talking to you as I was doing it, forgetting that I was 30 feet from the microphone. So I don't think anyone I don't think anyone heard what I was just fucking saying. So I apologize that if you heard me faintly yelling from across the room, it's because I was talking to Kyle through my phone, and I was not up to this microphone that you're hearing me from now. But anyways, my apologies for that. Yeah, like there are a lot of records like that where you have, or no, like you were saying with this, where this thing is chock full of minor hits. Like not like Brain Stew's a huge fucking hit. We can say that. But and actually, we're about to get to the next song here, which I feel like the way you're saying, you probably have the same views as I do with it, where it's insane that it was only a minor hit, but like this one's full of fucking minor songs, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I feel like that's what possibly took away from this album as far as popularity goes, is that there only was really one big hit, and even that, like, still got overshadowed by everything Dookie put out as far as hits are concerned. But like, I guess I'll do the segue into this, but Stuck With Me.
Fuck yeah.
Like, this song is so solid. Like, I get why it's a hit. I don't get why it doesn't get the airplay.
I'll never understand it.
Like, oh my God, like the guitar intro is nothing complex. I mean, we kind of talked about this earlier with just like, you know, like 3-chord punk rock songs and stuff like that. And like, it's captivating. This very well could have possibly been an intro song for the album, but like,
Ooh.
that, like, I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying, like, I guess it's like the closest similarity I could think of.
You got me thinking though.
I mean, like, it just like it kicks right in. Like it, like if it didn't do, like, you know, Armitage Shank has the drum fill. This just
goes right into it. That's it.
Yeah.
It goes right fucking into it. There is no. I mean, yes, there is an intro, but there's really no intro. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and they made a video for it, which was basically just like kind of them playing the song
all in black and white,
with their album art kind of sprinkled in throughout in between like shots. And visually, I can see why that would just be like a throwaway single visually, because the video really doesn't do anything for it. But the song itself is super solid. Like,
oh yeah,
like it has probably one of my favorite, like, quirky little lyrics on the album. It's the "find another pleasure seeker and throw him down to hell."
Oh, I like that.
Like, it's just like a, I don't know. It's not, but it's like a kind of like a, like, fuck these guys. Like, it's almost, you know what? Even though the song's probably not about this, but like now talking about it, and I now have a new light visually in my head that just turned on, is that like it's almost like the people that are like, oh man, Green Day sold out with this album, you know, like I don't want to hear it. Well, fuck you. Like,
yeah.
If you're just looking to find the next hot thing and like hoping that we're going to put out this next banger of an album, well, fucking go to hell. We're just going to do what we want. I don't care about pleasuring you. Like, I want to do what I want to do. Fuck off.
Oh yeah, I feel like there's a lot of that on this record. I mean, and really, it's funny. I forgot to bring it up during it, but like on the first, Armitage Shanks, I kind of felt like that song could have been about kind of a fuck you to those people and like, you know, the dealing with the success. The only reason that I know it's not that is I looked it up afterwards, and that was written actually pre-Dookie, which for one makes sense why it works so well with the continuation. But also, had I not known that it was written pre-Dookie, I would have definitely thought that Armitage Shanks was kind of like what you're talking about, where I thought lyrically it's a song about like dealing with the pressure of success and also kind of a fuck you to people. Like the alienation that, you know what I mean? Like if you listen to it, and it still works, even though he wrote it before it, but the alienation that I think he felt, you know, like I was talking about too earlier about how the old people who liked you no longer like you. You're not welcome where you came from. Like you can't go back home basically. But you're also in this weird, navigating this weird world of major labels where really that was still fairly new for punk bands to be on majors. I mean, not that they were the first one, but they're one of the first ones to really sell and to kind of navigate, you know, those murky waters. You should forget that too. Like, yeah, Offspring and shit sold, and so did Rancid, but those were both on Epitaph. Those weren't on they may have had the distribution of a major label, but they weren't on a major label like Green Day was. So Green Day is really one of the first real big punk bands on a big label and on a big scale like that. So like, I totally could see the first song on that record being about the alienation of feeling that and the loneliness and just wondering like, am I doing, like, are we doing, is this right? Obviously it's not, because once again, it was written way before, but yeah, I think you hear that a lot on here. And I mean, Stuck With Me definitely has those too, where it's kind of like, I bet that's about going through what we're talking about, where it's like this whole record is during Dookie being so fucking huge, and it's interesting too, because I was just looking this up as you were saying it on Wikipedia, but how like the video really wasn't much, like it's kind of a minor hit, but I was looking up, it was the second single for the record, which you would think they would have pushed more. Maybe it's just has to do with maybe the mainstream just didn't enjoy it. But I would think, like, I would have thought it was a throwaway, like one of those ones they put on way later. That actually came out before Brain Stew or Jaded. That was after Geek Stink Breath was their first single, which I will also that we'll get into too. But like, as far as too as you having your kickoff video and single for the album. But you would think Stuck With Me, considering that, the video wasn't much and that it doesn't feel like it ever got pushed all that often, that it's like, that's surprising. You would have thought that they just put that out in like 96 or so, like after, like a year after the record came out, just like, here's a way to kind of promote it a little more. Like you would not think that was one of the leading singles off the record,
See, I can picture it being a leading single because it still has similarities to Dookie as far as just like sound and kind of aggression is concerned. But yeah, like for me, like I didn't even know this was actually a hit. Like, growing up and like hearing the songs, like I didn't really see the video until like years back, a few years ago. Like I didn't know it existed. Cause like I said in like a later podcast, like I didn't really discover YouTube until YouTube didn't come out until like 05, 06.
Yeah.
So by then, like that record was already, 10 years old at this point. And so I didn't really go back and try to find like songs that I liked and like, oh, this has a music video. Let me check this out. So like, I didn't know that it was actually a hit until kind of doing some of this research, I guess, and realizing that there was like a video years ago that like, I was like, oh wow, that was considered a hit. I just thought maybe they made a video for a song, and I can see it being a lead single, but when we get into it, but I'll just say it now, I don't get why Geek Stink Breath was the opener as far as like, let's put a video out on this.
Yeah, that. Well, yeah, no, I want to get into that when in a second here too. I think you're totally right about that. If we're talking about like how you kind of want to market this or the right way to market it, which I mean, I guess too, the whole like hindsight 2020 thing, like obviously you want to sell as many records as you can. So like at the time, the A&R like department, behind them must have thought that it was a good idea. But yeah, like in retrospect, you're kind of like, it's kind of weird, like your lead-off singles, how you pushed them, like what was, and once again, with the hindsight thing, for all we know, they did push it a lot, and like rock radio and stuff just wasn't, not even rock radio. A lot of that, I can tell you just from being in fucking like doing radio and working in commercial radio for a while and shit, that a lot of that comes from the popularity of people listening. So it's not even that, rock radio is going to shun it or go, fuck, we're not going to play anything off this. A lot of people may not have liked, like it kind of goes back to that. Major labels want to put out what's going to sell a lot. So they're going to –
True.
It's not like major labels want something to sound a certain way because that's what they personally want. They want it to sound that way because they think that's what's going to sell the maximum amount. So, I mean, it goes back there where it's like, yeah, we think it's weird some of their choices on this, but at the time they must have thought this is what's really going to sell the record. And, for whatever reason, it didn't seem to work. And it's kind of fucked up too because now I'm thinking about it like with the singles and it's like – I think it might also hurt, though, because like I keep bringing up, too, you're still going off singles off of Dookie. Like, at this point, Basket Case is 1 year old. Like, people are just still hearing Basket Case for the first time. Like, so it's almost an overload. You know what I mean? Where it's like you're introducing yourself to the mainstream while also trying to put something else out right away. Like, there's just something – there's like – I don't know. Maybe this is a terrible metaphor. I mean, this might be fucking awful. I've done this. I feel like I bring up one of these shitty metaphors every time you're on, and then you one up me with one that makes more sense. Yeah, dude. So get ready to like fix my really fucked up metaphor here. But it makes me think of Star Wars in this way. Where Star Wars, the first one came out, and it's fucking massive, and it's a cultural fucking phenomenon in 1977. People had to wait like 5 years from The Empire Strikes Back. And there's something about that. For one, I think it gave people time to really digest it. It got to go everywhere. Like, there's something about that in that time helps. Where I go later on in Star Wars, they do the thing that people do where you just start shitting them out every year because they make money. But it's like... Yeah. I just think of that with Green Day, and once again, this could be a terrible fucking metaphor, it just popped in my head, but like the fact that you put something out as big as Dookie, you can't put The Empire Strikes Back out in 1978. Like, that's not, for a money grab, it's a thing, but like there's something about that like while you're such a massive cultural thing like Dookie, that maybe it's not a good idea to try to, continue on right away. Like, the success of that may have made them, like, maybe they should have backed the fuck up, like they did later on. Like, look at American Idiot. There wasn't a follow-up for years. That took, like, the flip side of this is when they had their next big album, like we were talking about. The difference between Insomniac and 21st Century Breakdown is one of them came out, like, a year after, and the other came out almost 5 years later. Or maybe well, no, it come out. Maybe, I think, end of 08. End of 08, like I think. Yeah,
sounds about right.
Maybe like 4 years. So, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. But, I mean, big difference in time where, once again, maybe that's handled better. Maybe there's something about that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I'll say this right now. Great analogy. I applaud you.
That's a first.
Yeah, there we go.
In Power Chord Hour history. I can't remember all of them. You got me good with the fucking Iron Maiden one, and I don't remember the last one. But there's been a couple times where you're like, right away, you're like, no, this is actually the best. And goddamn, you're right. It's not even condescending. You're just right. You just have a better analogy. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, stuck with me. And it is like you're talking about singles, like when I play Green Day on the radio show, like when I play a bigger band like them or like Blink-182, I don't like playing the singles. Like if I play them on my show, I'm not going to play fucking Basket Case or Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Like I want to play something that you haven't heard before, but I do play Stuck With Me because I'm with you. I go, this may be a single, but it's so fucking minor that people will listen to my show. And if they're like, obviously if you're a Green Day like you're a big fan, you've heard it. But if you're just a casual Green Day fan, I throw that on there because I go, this is a good song, good enough where they thought it was going to be a single, but you've probably not heard it, but you're going to really fucking like it. Because it's also not overplayed. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. It has the catchiness to be a single, but it hasn't been played 1,000 times like Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Or, I mean, better yet, going back to a better analogy, how about fucking Brain Stew? You know what I mean? You've heard Brain Stew 1,000 times on rock radio. When the fucking
I heard it on the radio last week.
Oh, dude, that song, it's just like how like somewhere in the world at all times there's someone is in a Guitar Center playing the opening riff to Smoke on the Water. It doesn't matter where you're at. Somewhere out there, someone's doing that right now in a Guitar Center. They're in a part of the world where it's fucking open. But like it's the same.
I'm having a Vietnam flashback right now. I used to work there.
I was I was hoping I put you back there, dude. I guess that was kind of malicious, but no, it's like it's the same thing with like Brain Stew. It's like it's being played on rock radio somewhere at every fucking moment. There's probably not a second that goes by in this world that song is not being played on rock radio somewhere. It's just a fact. And so like that's the thing is like a lot of times, and that's done it for me. There's so many classic rock bands. You know what? I'll give you one right now. Led Zeppelin, I've never given a fair chance because growing up, you just heard them so much on rock radio that the 5 songs that I do know of Led Zeppelin, I've heard them too many fucking times. It turns me off. Yeah. Like, and that's the thing with like Green Day, where I'm like, if you play, if I'm going to play a fucking Green Day song, you've heard Brain Stew, you don't need to hear it again. Sometimes that turns people off. Now, if you play a song like Stuck With Me, you go, no, this is a good fucking song. Like this, and it's another great highlight. Like you were talking about the simplicity of Billy Joe's guitar. But the flip side of that, this is one of Mike's shining moments on the record. If you listen to the bass runs he's playing under there, like if you want to talk about not staying idle, dude, he does not stay on one fucking note in that thing. That man's fingers are moving, like just in the beginning I'm thinking about like that underneath, like that, like when he's doing that dun na 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 na, and then underneath you have that like that fucking he's almost playing like pull-offs or something. Like I don't know what he's exactly doing, but it just, the way it meshes with that guitar so well, you don't even really realize that he's playing insane shit. Like if you're not picking it, like we're picking it out because we're musicians, so me and you are thinking about it in like a fucking more critical way. But like if you're just listening to that, not trying to pick that shit out, you wouldn't even realize it's so, it works and connects and interlocks so well. You almost can't like take apart the guitar and bass. They're like in there so, and then the flip side of that too, he's locked in so well with fucking Trey. Like the fucking bass and drums in that are just fucking great.
Which you like, I heard a really funny quote. That's funny because I find bass players funny, the cliche. But bass players and drummers have to work together.
Yes.
And I feel like not enough people really. I guess people like outside of the music scene like don't know that, but like there's some people in the music scene that are just like, I play bass and it's like root notes or whatever, but like you and your drummer need to be like in sync. And I feel like not enough people know that. And once people understand that, like just the schmo local band will, like those bands, once they figure that out, it's going to change everything for them as far as like just songwriting and, you know, layering, you know, different parts like here and there. And I don't know, it's such a game changer, and they do it so well. And them just being a 3-piece, they all need to be so cohesive that like you as you said, you can't pick it, like you can't separate them. Like if you separate it, like something's missing.
Yeah. And
they're like, as far as like, it's funny, I brought this band up earlier, like Rush is such a great example of like, they make so much noise for 3 people that
holy
like
shit, you forget there's only 3 fucking people in that band.
Exactly. So like with that like being a thing, like with Green Day, like I feel like as far as like just like 3-piece, or not even just 3-piece, just bands in general, they're like a super group that are just the original members essentially, because they all do what they do really well within their genre and like within their style, that if you took them away from it, they would still be successful. But like you'd be like, man, like Billy Joe is in this band now, but like, man, he's missing that Mike Dirnt bass style. Or like Mike Dirnt, you know, it's like he's missing that Billy Joe aggression and vocal style. And like same thing, you can throw Trey Cool in that conversation and it's all the same thing. And this song, just like, since we're still on it, like it is like a perfect example of like Green Day's like cohesiveness and like how individual they are musically, but how well it goes together.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. I mean, like, and you're spot on. Like the whole rhythm section thing is a short sight in a lot of people's eyes, because like you're saying, it's like, oh, we just need a bass, like I play bass, and it's like you're just playing fucking root note. Like all you're doing is playing what your rhythm guitarist is playing. You're just taking the 5th out. You're just, instead of making a chord, you're just playing the root note, and that just doesn't do anything. So people want to jump on like just, you know, and don't get me wrong, lyrics and guitar and all that are important, but if you're more like worried about like, oh, do we have these solos and this guitar and that and stuff, it's like, no, what people don't realize is how fucking, and here's the thing, the better you are, the less people realize it, and that's a good thing, because it means people just, like, you're just doing it so meticulously, or like, just, it fits so well that it doesn't, like, grab people's attention. But it's like, if you have a solid bass and drummer, just a great groove and rhythm going, like, that's what makes it. It totally, and Green Day is a good example of that, because once again, Billy Joe's not a fucking, he's not a guitar virtuoso. He plays some cool shit, like, I like his chord progression stuff, but he's never, I would never say he's like fucking Eddie Van Halen, and he's not supposed to be.
No, of course not.
But like the thing with that is, though, once again, you know, not getting far into music theory, but like just the thing of, if you're in a band where like here's one, AC/DC, I always say this, people talk about how like anything on an AC/DC song that isn't Angus Young playing guitar is very in the pocket. They're not really doing anything. You know, they're playing it very straight. That's because that's what you can't have it. Like the bass player cannot, if you have Angus Young in your band, you can't play weird bass runs. You can't you got to kind of play root notes. And it's like same with the drummer. Like you got to just kind of keep that beat. You got to play in the pocket. And there's a time and place for that. Sure. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, absolutely.
But
that's like the core of music, essentially, like as far as like hit songs, everything's in the pocket.
Oh, no, totally. But like if you want something more than that, like with Green Day, you're like, and they got that. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like there's not solo. Like you can probably count on like one hand the amount of guitar solos on this record. If they're even, I'm trying to even think. I don't even know that there is one. like I don't even like know like when I started thinking about it. But it's like there's nothing wrong with that. The secret to it, the driving force of these songs are the fucking bass and drums. Like the guitar is a huge part. I'm not taking that out of it, but like the bass and drums are so driving, including bass. Like is so. Same with the chorus. Like I love that shit. You know when he's like hitting the snare and just that, and just the bass is doing that like no. Like I can't mouth it.
Yeah,
but he's just going up and down. You know what I'm talking about though, right? Right before they go back into the fucking last chorus. Like what he's doing with Trey playing the drums there is just so fucking good. Like they're just the way they interlocked. Like I don't want to stay in it forever because if you're not a musician, this shit's probably boring. But like. You just listen to it and go like, that's such a sweet spot. Like I could just imagine like recording that. You're just like that. They just fucking have it. Like you just like if you were them coming up with that, you're just like, we fucking got it. Like that's that part of the song. Like that fucking works. And then to break into the chorus again after that, like it's just the structure of that so fucking good. Thanks to a big part, Mike and Trey.
Yeah.
But
100%. I couldn't agree more.
Like another one too, though, I will say, and then we can closing remarks of the song. But another part I really like about this song is that Billy Joe, and he does this very well, including on some of the first records, like the brattiness of his vocals. Like it's this thing that he does well on this song where it almost doesn't sound like he's trying at all, yet at the same time, it's just fucking perfect. Like there's this real loose like including in the verses, I would say. There's kind of this looseness to it. It's kind of bratty, but he does it so, once again, going back to where it's done so meticulously and it's just done so well and effortlessly that it's like you can't pull it off. If you try to do that, it won't come off the same way, but the way he does it is just so fucking good. Like you can't emulate it, but like that snottiness and that brattiness in his voice is just, it's him. It's the uniqueness that you can't recreate, yet it's so simple. But you can't get it if you tried to do it with anyone else.
Yeah.
But, once again, we could stand on this forever. I'm going to say it's probably both our favorite. As far as we're going singles off the album, probably both of our favorite singles, I would say. Maybe? No?
I would say it would definitely be number 2 for sure. Maybe number 1 on certain occasions, but I'd say for me a solid number 2 without a doubt.
Another solid 2 is their album before this, Dookie. But I'm sorry, that was a shitty joke.
That was a shitty joke.
It really was. No, not even a pun. There was no pun intended. That was just a terrible fucking joke. That was it. All right, let me get out of. Let me crawl out of this hole I just dug. Moving on. Geek Stink Breath. Now, the first thing I gotta say, my second favorite song about crystal meth. I mean, Semi-Charmed Life has to be my first. I've always said that. Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind makes me want to try meth. Like if I was ever if there was ever a low point in my life, it's like I gotta try meth, I would put Semi-Charmed Life on while I was smoking. Like I would just have to. Like if someone offered me meth, I'd be like, you better have Third Eye Blind's self-titled record like with you. Like I have to listen to the song while I do it.
Now, I don't do drugs, and I've never.
I mean, I don't
even know what meth looks like. No, but I'm just gonna say this. I don't know if there's like upper moments or downer moments with meth, but like Semi-Charmed like Life is like the total upper. Is like I would same thing. Like if for some reason meth would be presented in front of me,
you got to listen to that song while you do it.
I'd have to listen to that song where I would say Geek Sneak Breath is a fucking downer to me.
Yes. God, you know what, dude? The contrast of them both, that is a great point of like the sides of meth. Like the first minute you're feeling semi-charmed life, but then a couple hours go by, you're feeling a little geek stink breath.
Yeah, and like I don't have like realistically like on this song in particular, I don't have a whole lot to say on it except for like when I was a kid, I used to like insult people with like, oh, yeah, geek stink breath. You know, just saying you had I didn't know. I was a fucking little kid. And I didn't know this. Actually, no, sorry. That was just, sorry. I did know this. I knew they made a video for this because I remember seeing it as a kid. What I didn't know was when I went to watch this back, it is quote unquote blocked on YouTube.
Oh my God, it is?
You can watch it, but there's like legitimately like a warning before you watch it that's like graphic content, blah blah blah. Like it tells you if you like, it asks you a question if you want to play it or not.
I've never I'm an OG. I've only well, I probably have seen it on TV, but I first saw it on International Super Videos. So I saw the fucking before you got a warning. They just fucking put the video on there. To this day, that's why I haven't watched it since I watched it on the DVD. To this day, that video just like I get it. Like I think it's funny that they did that. But, like, it still makes me uneasy. Like, I don't like watching it. It's not a video I enjoy watching.
Yeah, I remember, again, I shared a room with my brother when I was a kid, and, you know, we listened to songs and, you know, punk rock albums kind of got me into it. But, like, I remember we would go to bed at, like, 8 or 9 o'clock, and around, like, 10, whatever, like, we'd try to sneak out of our room because we would watch, like, Pee-wee's Playhouse and this and that. And, like,
hell yeah.
I remember watching this music video, knowing it was Green Day and, like, seeing the content of it. I'm like, wow, that's really gross. Like, but not, like, reacting to it. I wasn't reacting. I was just like, whoa, that's weird. And now as, like, an adult, I watch it. I'm like, oh shit, that's messed up. How was this on TV? Come to find out that they only aired it, like, late at night.
Well, now here, and we were getting into this was Stuck With Me, and I think it was with your if I remember correctly, but like this was the lead single off the record, and I have the same thing because I first saw this video and heard this song when I bought the International Super Videos DVD in like 2007. So like that was my introduction. Now that we're doing this, and I'm realizing we're talking about a band that was selling millions of records. They're doing their follow-up. The label's about to put up the first single. This is the first single off their second major label record. Like, this band's huge. And they put out a song called Geek Stink Breath, which is already a reference to fucking, I don't understand it entirely, but I know geek has something to do with meth. So definitely Geek Stink Breath has to do with meth. And not only is the video fucked up, that is their friend getting his tooth taken out because of the effects of meth. That's real fucking footage of a man getting his tooth pulled out because he was abusing meth. This is the lead fucking single and video off of it. Like, this is how they were going to sell more records for the band. It's insane to think about now.
Maybe this video is the reason why the fucking album, quote unquote, tanked.
I think it may have. In some ways, it very well might have.
But I'll say this also. And again, I don't have a whole lot to say about this song, even musically. But I'll say this, like, yeah, the video was weird, and for it being the first single is also weird, but also, this is probably the weakest song on this album, in my opinion.
Ooh. Now, it's not my weakest, but now that you say that, I don't have it up there that high. If we were doing even if we were doing like top 5 songs, would not make it. It would not make it into my top 5. Like, the more you say it now, I don't dislike this song, but it's far from the best song on this record.
I don't hate this song. I like it. I'll listen to it if it comes on, but I'm not like stoked that it's on. I'll be like, oh, right on, cool. And that's about it.
Now, I won't tell you what song it is, but I'm going to bring this up. I have it in my notes for a song later on. You might have the same thing with this one. If you're listening to Insomniac front to back, you don't skip this song, but if you're putting Green Day on and you're just going through like a shuffle of Green Day songs, you're not going to intentionally play this one. It's not going to be your first fucking pick.
Yeah, like on Spotify, sometimes I'll find an artist and I'll pick a song that I want to play, but then put it on shuffle. I will never select this song like this is the first song I want to hear. No, like I'll find like a Stuck With Me or like even a Castaway from Warning. I'll put those on.
Yeah.
But like I'll never select this as like the first song to kick off my Green Day jam.
No, that I am, now that you say that, I am totally with you. And I mean, I kind of have the same thing. Like, I feel like this one, there's not a ton to say. Like, I don't hate the song, but it's not my favorite. I think it's fucking odd now that, and really, this is like in real time, you're hearing me realize this, like how fucking odd it is that this was the first single and video. Like,
yeah.
And the subject, just the fact that it was a subject matter of like, I guess that's what they, you know what though? They really did pave the way for Third Eye Blind a few years later. Stephen Jenkins went, well, those motherfuckers wrote a song about meth. Like, that was a single. Like, I'm going to one up it. And I hate to go back to
and
this,
they did.
but like, you know what's funny about this? As much as we're talking about how on this record there's a lot of songs that are a little more upbeat, but lyrically they're fucked up. This one I feel like the lyrics fit. Do you feel like that? See, I feel like the music fits with the lyrics. And it's funny because
100%.
like Semi-Charmed Life is almost the pinnacle of what we're talking about, where it's this that's one of the most fucking beautiful summertime. That's like a defining song of the 90s, and it's all about fucking doing meth and getting blown.
Yeah. And no one, like, you can tell any schmo on the street, and they probably have no idea the meaning of that song.
They fucking had to take out there's that whole bridge of the song that they had to take out of the fucking radio. That only, actually though, if you're not a Joser, you fucking play the OG version with that, with the extra like bridge or whatever it is, like those extra lines. But like, yeah, like most of radio doesn't play a section of Semi-Charmed Life. They cut out a section of that song because it's so fucking dirty.
I'd rather listen to that than this.
Yeah, you know what? If we're talking, well, actually, no, that isn't surprising. Because like I said, Geek Stink Breath, probably my second favorite song about smoking meth. Semi-Charmed Life definitely takes the cake for that. It's still my biggest regret when I interviewed Stephen Jenkins. I really wish I would have. I think nowadays I might have. I was just very nervous to interview him. I really wish I would have told him that he wrote the greatest song about that. I should have told him that he wrote a song that made me want to try crystal meth. Because I feel like it would have went two ways. He either would have laughed at that, or it would have been as silent as when I made my Dookie joke a few minutes ago when you said a solid number 2. It would have went one of those ways. He either would have laughed or it would have went silent for 30 seconds. I'm not sure. He would have just taken out.
Yeah, he would have just like taken out his headphones and just like laughed. Turned off his phone, like blocked your number.
It's just I don't know. It could have went either way. But anyways, I apologize. I'm taking my own show and going off track. But the next song, and actually it is No Pride, and I actually forgot this was the next song. This is funny because I feel No Pride kind of like you do with Geek Stink Breath, where this is No Pride is easily my least favorite song on the record. I don't hate it. It's still a good song. It's my least favorite. And I have the same reaction you do at Geek Stink Breath, where if I'm listening to Insomniac, I'm not going to skip it. But I can't think of a time that I've ever went out of my way to actually listen to this song. I feel like it's kind of, this is what I wrote down. It could have been a Dookie B-side. Like, I don't even hear it on the record. I don't even hear it on Dookie. I just feel like it could have been like a B-side or an outtake. Like, it's an okay song, but there's nothing that special here.
No, the only thing I can really say about it, because you're absolutely right, I kind of have the same kind of layout. It's just like nothing major of this song could have been on Dookie if Dookie was, I guess, written differently or like arranged differently. They took a couple different songs out. But like the one thing I would say about this, because this is part of the nostalgia portion of this album for me, is that this was one of the songs that, like, I guess was like kind of like slowly started to inform older me of like, not older me, but just like started to guide me in like the thought process of like kind of what it is to be a punk, quote unquote, and like not giving a fuck and like I don't care and like, you know, like I am who I am and it's really no secret to these people that were like around me, and I didn't really give a shit like who thought of me in what way at that time. So that this song is kind of part of that. And also, like, I would listen to it like when I was in school, I competed in wrestling, like, and this was like one of the songs that like I would listen to. Like, I'd have like my little tape cassette, and it was this and the next song were like kind of like my big like fucking getting ready, warming up, getting all like my aggression out like before my match. And like that's what I can say about this song. It's just like it was kind of like my like fuck you punk rock anthem as a kid, and like it got me energized. But kind of like what you said, like I'm not going to go out of my way to like listen to this song, but if it comes on, I'll be like, a sick memory. But that's really about it. I'm not going to like, oh fuck, I need to listen to No Pride right now because of this. It's just like a cool, like, yeah, I remember 8th grade.
Yeah, it's just good. And you know what, like that, and like I said too, I got into Insomniac at a weird time, so like I would probably have the same reaction as you do. Like there's songs on American Idiot that are like that for me, where I'm like, they're not really that special of songs, they're really not standouts. I just have some kind of memory associated with them, or like, you know, it is from listening to that album a lot. Like had I listened to Insomniac, like I totally get where you're coming from, because yeah, had I had like a connection of that, maybe I'd have more for this song. Where now I like listen to it even like when getting ready for this, and I was just kind of like, I like forgot about, like it was just a song where I'm kind of like, oh, I forgot about this song. I'm just kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah, no, I could easily see that.
But you know, I guess then if we don't have much else to say about No Pride, we can probably move on. And this one's actually the opposite of No Pride. This one's actually one of my this is like top 3 songs on the record. And I also got to say, the next few songs on here, in my opinion, is like the sweet spot of the album. Like the next couple ones, really fucking good. Like this is where, this is the next couple songs really make like the record why it's so good. And obviously the next one, if you don't know what we're talking about, Babs Uvula, Who, and just so fucking, I mean, once again, bass line. You want to talk about a good fucking bass line? That one, so goddamn good, dude. So goddamn good.
Yeah. Oh. Oh man, like I said, like this song and No Pride were like part of like my pump up, kind of ready to beat some ass song.
I want to beat a motherfucker up after this song, 100%. This is great music for that.
Oh my god, it was so awesome to listen to, like get myself in the zone and just I don't know, just hearing the guitar and hearing just the whole like get myself all wound up, and how that's like kind of just repeating throughout the whole song. Like, oh god, there's so much energy to it. It reminds me just like of a good, solid UK punk rock song.
Ooh, you know what? That's a good. I didn't write it for this song, but there is like 1 or 2 parts on this where I feel like they really kind of went back, and like you can hear the influence that like that old school early like UK punk, and also like 80s punk and hardcore, like early stuff. There's a couple parts on this album where it comes out, like you're talking about. I made that connection in a couple other places where you totally can hear that, like that old UK punk stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, like just while you were saying that, like I just kind of popped it up on my YouTube really quick, and like I played the first like 9 seconds, and also my eyebrows like got angry, and just like started bobbing my head, and like. Just like listening to you talk and like having that in the background, I just started bobbing my head and like making an angry face already.
You're ready to kick up. You're ready. You're gonna go outside your apartment after this and just beat the shit out of someone. It's the first person who just walks by you. Anyone. Wait, what?
I can't touch anyone. I gotta.
That's true.
Distance myself, bro.
God damn. You know what? That's what we forget of all the shit that COVID's taken from us. You can no longer just go out and just fucking beat up people after you listen to Insomniac. That's the true injustice here, that I can't listen to fucking Insomniac and get transported back to high school wrestling and fucking fight people on the streets.
Yeah, right.
It'll be fair game. I'll let them listen to it first too. I'll be like, listen, I'm about to beat you up, but before that, go listen to tracks.
I'm going to give you a chance.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the second half of Insomniac? Actually, this might still be side A. But anyways, I'm sorry. I'm just
Yeah,
derailing
yeah.
it again. But yeah.
But no, just the energy of the song, and like, I'm glad this wasn't a hit, because it could have been in some other universe. But like, this is one of those songs where, like, again, super fast song at this point in the album. It is the besides Brat, it is the shortest song, and I feel like it just gets the job done as far as like giving you a full song in 2 minutes without feeling like you're missing something, without thinking like, oh, this part should be extended, or there should be some, like, an extra thing here. It's just, it cuts to the point without thinking like it's too short.
No, you're right. I mean, like, literally one of the things I just have written down is just, it's classic catchy Green Day. Like, it's one of those songs that you're talking about, like how it could have been a single, and thank God it wasn't. But like, because I could see it as a single, but I think it would have had the same fate that Stuck With Me did. Really, any song on this record, if you are a song on Insomniac and your name isn't Brain Stew /Jaded, you never got the fucking love or respect that you deserved. Like, you were neglected. Like, you should, like, come here and let me hug you. Like, you should have been so much fucking bigger. Like, that's a sad thing, is it should have been a single, but I don't think it would have ever done anything. It would have.
Oh, no, sorry, keep going.
No, dude, you're fine. What'd you just think of?
No. Oh man, like, it's not. I would say it's not as bad as an analogy, but it's kind of like a, oh, that's really sad analogy.
Oh no, what is
like,
it?
It's like you. Oh god, it's so sad. Like, you go to like an adoption agency for like puppies, and you see all the puppies, and you're like, oh, all these puppies are so cute. I like you, and I like you, and I like you, but look at this one. This one's so cute. And like, that's like, I guess, since we just kind of brought it up, like, oh, I'm petting my new dog, Brain Stew Jaded. Like, oh, but these other ones are so cute. You know what? I'm gonna get this one now, and I'll come back for you guys later. And then they just never got picked up.
I was gonna make it really. Never mind. I was gonna make it
They
really
were
dark.
Appreciated.
I wasn't
They were
gonna say that.
appreciated. No, we're not gonna kill these songs.
Oh, okay. You knew. All the songs
they
on
got
Insomniac got euthanized afterwards. I mean, it's a dark record. Didn't we say it's a dark fucking record?
It is. You know what? They probably have a B-side about that.
Oh my god! Just putting down puppies. That's the B-side to the song about your parents fucking dying and getting inheritance. It's about fucking. Oh my god!
Yep. They use the inheritance to buy some puppies.
But just they couldn't afford all. Oh god! It's just called Bag Full of Puppies. Duffel Bag Full of. That's actually the original title of Insomniac, was Duffel Bag Full of Puppies.
It's true. You heard it here first.
Yeah,
guys.
that's a music. Now listen, there's nowhere else. Like, if you're looking for the source on this, a credible source, it's just here. It was just. Yeah. If anyone's like, where'd you hear that? Say episode 38 of the Power Chord Hour podcast. They'll be like, what the fuck's that? And it's like, fuck you, dude. And you can beat them up because you just listen to this song and you're pumped.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, we went completely just off the rails there.
I mean, we really just meshed Babs Uvula Who with high school wrestling and dog euthanasia, all balled up into one.
It sounds like a song I would have written like freshman year in high school.
Oh my god! I think we might get into that later on. I kind of have something that goes along that line, but I guess getting back to things, I don't know how much this song is about euthanasia. I don't know how much it has to do with anything we were just talking about, but it's just such a classic song, and it is a fucked up thing though, because getting back to your analogy before I pissed all over it with my dark turn. You're absolutely right though. Like, it's like, sure, it would be rad if it was like, if it got more attention and stuff, but I'm like, I feel like the fate of it would have been any different. Like, I don't think any song, as much as there's songs on here where we could go, this song's better than this one, or this one should have been a single, the fucked up thing is I don't think it would have mattered. Like, I don't think.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have. It was, like you said, they would have all met the same fate that every other single that wasn't Brain Stew Jaded. They just would have been overlooked, and it would have taken, someone like, I'll say like myself, to like go back and be like, Oh, I didn't know there was a video for like "Stuck with Me" until like years ago. You know, it would have been that same thing. Like Babs, you know who had a video? Really?
Yeah, like you know, like it would just blow your fucking mind. Like you'd be like, I hadn't like 10 years later, you'd find out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And no other song except for maybe one other would have that.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but I think that's the absolute truth. There wasn't, I don't know, like the whole thing, like we're both of the consensus. This is a great record. Might be one of their best ones. You even have me kind of thinking now this might be one of their best ones. But with that said, the fucked up thing is like I don't think anything could have saved this. And it's funny because we're talking about a Green Day record. Like it's weird to talk about how this was commercially a failure. Like it's not a shitty record by any means. It's a commercial failure.
No, it's not.
Yeah, like it's not. It's a great fucking record. It was only a commercial failure, but like it's so funny when you're talking about a Green Day record. Like because now it's funny. You think about it in 2020, like Green Day's fucking huge. I mean, sure, not every album has sold millions and millions, but still, they're a fucking massive band. So to think that like this record was looked at as a step in the wrong direction by some, and I mean even career-wise, if they were trying to make millions of dollars, it was not a step in the right direction. But it's such an interesting album for all those reasons. It's like no song I think would have made a difference. I don't think, like as good of a record as it is, I'm basically just saying I don't think there's a way for this to sell 10 million records like Dookie did. There's not a world where this sold that many. There's just, it never could have happened.
No. And it sucks because actually it does suck, but it doesn't, because like it gets people like us talking about how great this record really is and how slept on it was. And maybe it gives someone that second chance look at being like, man, you know what? I kind of skipped out on this record back in the day, or kind of shit talked it. And then they kind of go back and listen to it and hopefully kind of see it in a good of light as we see it, because I think it's one of their better records. And the fact that it did get slept on and was considered a commercial failure sucks. But again, it also lets people understand that like just because commercially something didn't succeed doesn't mean it doesn't mean it can't have longevity and it can't hold up to the test of time.
It's a good, it's also a great example of the idea that just because something popular doesn't make it good, or just because and vice versa, if something's not popular doesn't mean, like, if you're gauging the quality of something by how popular it is, you're a fucking moron.
Oh, geez.
And this is a good example of that. Like, if you're just like, I'm not going to check out that one because it doesn't have fucking Good Riddance or American Idiot on it, like, it doesn't have one of the songs that I know, you're missing out on some of their best work. Like, and that's what a lot of bands, there's so many, because the other thing too is like, maybe these songs, which once again, I don't see it ever being big, but if there somehow was a bizarro world where this record sold tons and tons, maybe we would detest this record because it got overplayed like a lot of their other stuff. Like maybe there is a timeline where Stuck With Me is played ad nauseum like Brain Stew is, where I'm just like if I hear Brain Stew on the radio, I'm not going to change the channel, but I'm no longer like, you know what I mean? Like I don't get that stokeness you get sometimes when you hear a band that you love on the radio. You're just like, it's Brain Stew. Like we said, this is getting played on radio somewhere at every fucking waking moment. Like it's not special to hear anymore. And it's the same thing. Like if I hear Stuck With Me on a show that isn't my own and someone else is actually playing it, I'm like, holy shit, like who's playing this song right now?
Stoked.
Yeah, you fucking get stoked, where it's like, what if we were in a world where it's like, oh, Stuck With Me? Like this is the 1000th fucking time I've heard this. So maybe that's part of why we still love it so much, is it is kind of pure. It wasn't played out like, some of the singles on Dookie and some of their other records, like maybe that's part of what makes it good. But I guess, I don't know. Maybe the other thing is just the songs are fucking good. That might be the other reason why it's good. Maybe the songs are just good. But, you got anything else on this song before we move on to the next?
No, I'm good.
It's a fucking solid song. It's one of my favorites. And I mean, like I said, this section is like the best part of the record, in my opinion. And this is another. If we're talking top 3 songs here, Babs is in there, and so is 86. The next song, this is honestly in my top 3 of the record. There's just something about it. It's fucking simple. Once again, that chorus is simple as shit. There's nothing to it. It's just so good. It's just so catchy. It's another one of those songs where energy takes such a big part of it. There's nothing crazy about it musically. They're not reinventing the wheel here. They're not doing anything too different. it's just works so fucking well. It just all the energy of it and stuff you just hear and you're like, that's what makes it good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those songs I kind of referenced to earlier of like, I wish like my band or like a band I was in was able to like write songs like this or like do something lyrically like this. This is one of the songs where it was like not knowing that like my songwriting or like the way I played guitar kind of came from a particular source, where this song is definitely like, yeah, it's simple. There's nothing to it. It's one of those songs that allows me to just feel like, okay, my band would have written a song just like this. And it sounds like a song that like one of my first bands would have written. And that's like the main place it takes me to is that like, man, I wish I could write a song like this. Well, my band started writing songs like this and I didn't even know it.
That, that's a great, like, I love where you're going with that too, because I feel like this song, part of what makes it so good is that it's one of those, there's certain songs where I go, if someone asked you, like, what is, and including if we're getting specific, like an era, like, if you're like, what did pop punk sound like in the mid 90s? This is a song that I would play. If I was making a playlist, like, this is a song that would be on there. Like, if you're just talking about in general, like, summarize for me what that sound is, this is one of those songs. It's the simplicity of it. It's the lyrics. It's the energy, everything about it, like what you're talking about and why it makes total sense, why it influenced you. I think it's one of those ones where it's like, this is what you go off of. I always say that with, just kind of another example. I always say this about Alistair Somewhere on Fullerton. I'm like, if you want to talk about what pop punk in the early 2000s sounded like, I just go, that's the song. Yeah. It's like that has, it's the elements. And same with Holiday. You want to talk about what makes a good album opener. It's like what I was saying with the Get Up Kids Holiday earlier. I'm like, there's just certain songs where you go, it's just no nonsense. It defines a genre in a lot of ways. In 86, obviously.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it like doesn't, it didn't like make them I don't know that they play this song live much. I don't know that a lot of people know this song, but it's like the people who did though, like the people who give a shit like you, who like were listening to it and then like, being influenced by it. This is a fucking song to do that. Absolutely. Like just everything about it.
Like I would say like this would be one of those songs that like I'd say like because I can't think of a time that like this was like added to a set list of theirs by any means. But like say during American Idiot era, it's like, because they at that point they have so many hits, they can just do a hits, tour, and no one's really gonna get mad technically. But like say during American Idiot era, they were like, all right, we're gonna bring it back, and they just threw out fucking 86.
Fuck yes.
That crowd. Okay, maybe depending on the crowd, but I think like the core Green Day fans that have been with them forever, if they heard this song, that show would go nuts. That crowd would be off the wall.
Oh, 100%. And this is I was talking about this earlier on in the year. It's obviously, or not canceled, I guess it's postponed now. But the thing I was talking about, like that whole tour they were going to do with Fall Out Boy and Weezer, like that's cool. But one of my things about it, what I was saying is like, you're just going to get greatest hit sets from all those guys. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're playing arenas, you're playing different fans, but it's like a tour like that, like what you're talking about. Like if they played 86, like on the Hella Mega Tour, I feel like more than half the crowd would just kind of like, you know what I mean? I don't think they'd get a reaction.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think
they wouldn't.
One. I remember seeing Fall Out Boy when they reunited. I saw them with a bunch of people who obviously which they just put fucking Light 'Em Up or whatever out. It was before the whole record was out, but like they played Tell That Mick, and I swear to you, dude, I was like one of the only people. I was the only person in my fucking area too. They're all a bunch of like little teenage girls. I was jumping around. I was fucking screaming, and dude, I was in the fucking minority. I looked around. People didn't give a shit. And I'm like, what are you motherfuckers like? I wanted to listen to Babs and No Pride and just start wrestling motherfuckers there. Like, how can you guys not like? Am I listening to the same thing you guys are? Like, they just pulled out one of their greatest songs ever, and you're all like waiting for fucking Thanks for the Memories. Like, go fuck yourself. Like it's totally.
Yeah, no,
I've seen crowds, and it's a bummer because sometimes a band will play a song you love, but it is true, if the crowd's not receptive, even if you are, it kind of bums you out.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, it is. It's just it's I feel like it just depends. You need the right crowd for that. But
Yeah,
like I would love a fucking Green Day like
if they were doing like Bakersfield hometown like shit, and
That'd be
it
a
was
good
like
one.
they're playing like their local like stadium. Like I know there's a place and like maybe not even like a stadium, but like there's a place I think it's in San Francisco, which technically isn't too far, but like it's called like the Cow Palace, I believe. Pretty small like venue as far as like capacity goes, and you get Bay Area like Green Day fans, and they pumped out this song. I'm not saying like everyone in the crowd's gonna go nuts, but you're gonna get a good chunk of people that are like losing their mind in like a holy shit moment of like, this is actually happening.
No, that's one. If you played a small fucking show, like they played an intimate show, there would definitely be a pit and crowd surfing to this song. 100. That's like, the crowd where you get the reception.
So like not on the same level by any means, but like a number of years ago, I saw Blink with Matt Skiba play with like a Day to Remember and shit like that. And the video is going around on YouTube now, and it's funny because I was at that show, so it felt more special to me. But like Matt Skiba went on stage to play with a Day to Remember, and they played
Private Eye, right? Yeah, I've seen video of that.
Like, yeah, and I was in the crowd like losing my fucking mind because like it's Alkaline Trio, a local dude, they're playing like a really fucking great song that I wasn't expecting to hear. And same thing, like I was going nuts hearing it and like kind of looking around, and I could see like, the Day to Remember fans and like the Blink fans that were in the crowd, like even like probably people that were into Trio a little bit. But like most people in my general area was just like kind of bobbing their head like, okay, what is this? Like Matt's with Day to Remember on this song. Cool. No big deal. But like, I was like in your position, like I was losing my fucking shit, and like no one around me was feeling it. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are terrible.
I'm sorry. Why did they place me in the Joser section? I'm sorry. I didn't see that on my ticket. I thought it said general admission, not fucking Joser section.
Yeah. Fucking
dude,
Josers everywhere, man.
Apparently. But like you're totally right. And I mean, and we get back to the song here, but just that whole thing of like how audiences have such a big thing of that. Like what I always appreciate, I've seen the Menzingers live a lot of times, and they'll every show I've ever seen them play, they will pull out an obscure cover or B-side that they've done. And it's always, but like what I like about that is you look around and it's the same thing. Half the crowd doesn't even fucking know the song. Like they'll play a song off like one of my favorite songs there is Irish Goodbyes. It's a random song off a compilation that it was on for like Run for Cover in like 2011. I've heard them play that like 2 or 3 times. Half the crowd doesn't fucking know it, but the ones of us who do, we're fucking jumping, we're being fucking crazy. Like you're going, it's like the biggest reaction they get out of me all night. And I appreciate when bands do that, but it does. It's a sometimes you see them, including with Green Day, like Menzingers, obviously it's such a smaller level to do that. But I feel like Green Day is in one where a lot of times you can't play this shit. Like I bet a lot of times they would like to play some of the songs that they just don't play. Because you're right. Like after a while, you have so many fucking albums, you have so many singles, and including when you play an arena. The weirdest thing about arenas when you think about it is like there's thousands of people who bought tickets for 1 or 2 songs. There's literally people who went there, spent $80 to hear fucking American Idiot. Like that's it. Like literally, and one fucking song.
It's mind blowing. Yeah. Like same thing. Like I mean, just since it's something relatable. Like I couldn't imagine I'm gonna bring up like a band that I like, but I don't like love, but I know some like hits. Like that'd be like me being like, you know what? You know who I really like? I like, and this is not really bad in retrospect, but like I Bayside, and like Like, I like them. I don't know a whole, like, I know their songs, but it's not like I sit there and listen to them a lot, and I can't call them one of my favorite bands, but I'll be like, yeah, they're cool. That would be like me, like, on a Green Day level, being like, I'm going to pay this money to hear Devotion and Desire.
I was just about to say that song, too.
Yeah, and that's, like, their big hit. And that's, like, the same with Green Day. Like, you get that one person, whatever, being like, I want to hear American Idiot. Like, that's all I'm here for. I don't give a fuck about these other songs. Like, I don't like that point of view, because, like, just because, like, you're really not enjoying the show. You're just getting by just to hear one song. Like, imagine if they played 86 at, like, all these shows and, like, no one cared at all. And, like, would that feel defeating because these people don't know this song? Or would it be like, you know what, this song is kind of like, you know what, we don't care if no one knows it. This is, like, our time to be like, you know what, for one song, let's just not care about what everyone wants to hear, and let's just play something for ourselves.
I think so much of that is a balance, too, because the thing is, like, it's not even like they could do a great fucking version of it. The problem is it becomes a lull in your set. You know what I mean? Like, if you're playing hit after hit after hit and everyone's going fucking nuts, and then you throw in that monkey wrench with something like this, that's where I think the problem is, where a lot of times won't do it, because yes, you'll have this minority of the crowd who's really fucking stoked on it, but all of a sudden you lose some of that energy level. Like, when you start playing shit that people don't, it's the same thing with, like, playing too many new songs. It's like it starts to fuck up the flow of, you know, the whole set. It's not even if the band doesn't like it, because I'm sure Green Day strikes me as dudes, like, they all seem like they'd like to do that, don't they? Like, I feel like they might even, like, when they do sound checks and rehearse and shit, I could see them pulling out weird stuff. Like, I think they appreciate their back catalog.
I don't have any reference to it, but I would assume that would be the same thing. Like they would love to do that. It's just that's where they would do it, though. That would be it.
Yeah, I mean, this all just makes it really more. They need to do a fucking tour where, they just play, like, basically no singles. Just even if it was smaller, like, play a. I mean, still they would still sell an arena with that, but, like, just even an advertise, like, we're not playing singles. Like, anything that was, like, on the Billboard Top 40, not getting played here. Like, this is all fucking album songs. This is all album tracks.
Like, in recent times, like, we kind of, like, a couple weeks ago, kind of made reference to this, like, through Twitter or Facebook. We were talking, like, Newfound Glory just did the 20th anniversary live stream of their self-titled album. And they split that. They did basically, like, one whole set of just that album, and then they did, like, a second set of, like, the other hits and other songs, like, in the repertoire. So they still did, like, the album in full, like, whatever hits were on that album, quote unquote, but they did it in full. And then they did a second set to, like, kind of fill the gaps of, like, if people were there for the hit song that, I want to hear My Friends Over You. Well, you'll hear that in, like, the second half of the set. Yeah. But, like, you still get the core, like, of the album, and then you can kind of get everything else later on. If they did something like that, even, would be fucking mad. Well, that's what I like about, like, when they have done Dookie, because I think they essentially do that. Like, if you go look up the set list, they'll, like, play Dookie front to back, and then they'll do, like, greatest hits. So I'm in the crowd, and I go, holy shit, I just heard Coming Clean or Sassafras Roots, and then it's like, I heard Pulling Teeth. Yeah, like, and then it's like, then there's other motherfuckers there, though, who are there for, like, American Idiot, and they still get that. You know, we both leave satisfied. Mm-hmm. Like, that is kind of a nice argument for, like, album anniversary shows, is a lot of times they will do, like, an encore of greatest hits, so it's like, someone can hear those songs I want to hear, but I also get to hear a few songs that they probably either never played live before or haven't played live since. Actually, dude, this is funny. I was reading, I forget where I saw, but when I was looking up shit for this episode, 86 was one of those, apparently. They played it a lot on the Insomniac tour, never really played it again after. It is not really played much afterwards. Sorry, I'm just... I was just going to say that, like, and kind of maybe in wrapping of this song, the only other thing I would say would be, like, though, like, it wasn't actually, no, this is a completely different tangent, but no. Go ahead, man, you're fine. No, I was going to split onto something else that wasn't on the point that I was
You're going to pull an Anthony.
Yes, exactly. No, the only other thing I want to say about this song, me personally, is that up until doing this, and it never really dawned on me, I had no idea that the words 86 were even in this song, because I didn't know, like, until I was older what the term 86 even meant. I thought the title of the song was 86, which it is. I didn't ever hear 86 in the lyrics. And the chorus, I thought they said there was no return from innocence.
Oh, is this what you were talking about earlier when I brought up fucking in fucking what song was it?
Was it,
I can't think of the song title.
Brat? It was in Brat.
Yeah, Brat. Yeah, because I think I thought after Mom and Dad look so good these days, he said they have hangovers from hell, and that's not what he's saying at all.
No, like the entire time, like I thought, like the title of the song being 86 meant like a year or like a street.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense.
I didn't know. And then like a couple of years ago, like I actually heard the term like, oh yeah, this is being 86 or this is being 86, and like it didn't dawn on me until I was doing this. I'm like, oh yeah, there's that song 86, and then I'm listening to it. I'm like, oh, it makes so much more sense now.
You know what though? I like the innocence thing because, and this will be my closing remark on it then as well. But this was just hours ago actually. I was thinking about this song, and I randomly thought about it. I was listening to the lyrics really for one of the first, like really paying attention to lyrics, and I'm like, I bet this song is about Gilman Street. And I looked it up, and I swear to God, that's what it's about. I'll just looking at the lyrics.
Way.
Yeah, because I started thinking, because 86, like you're talking about, like what 86 means. And then I started thinking about it, and you listen to the lyrics, and I'm like, this kind of sounds like it's about, you know, like kind of about Gilman Street. And I looked it up. It's 100% about that. I mean, it's been
Holy
confirmed.
Shit, that's rad. That's so sick.
Which the innocence thing, though, I was going to get to. I like what you said about there's no return to innocence, because even though it's not what he's saying, it makes sense with the subject of the song. It's like, yeah, we can't go back. We're fucking shunned. Like, there's no return to innocence. We're not fucking allowed back to the place that we got established at. Like, the whole place that gave us a name, we can never go back to. So it's like, which once again, what a class act, because even with that said, it's not like they're really mean to Gilman Street in that. You know what I mean? It's about getting shunned and cut out from that. But it's not that mean or bitter of a song. You know what I mean?
No, it's not like a fuck you to it. It's just like it's
a disappointment more than a bitterness.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it is. It's not like a fuck you or anything like that. Once again, they obviously had some love for him because they fucking have financially got them out of trouble, I think, a few times. And like, I love Gilman Street. Once again, it's the fucking silliest thing to me that Green Day got like, just, I mean, the shunt where it's like, people fucking know about you because of them. Like, they gave you a name. There's still people who fucking, if you're not from the Bay Area, there's so many of us who never would have even known what that place was without like Green Day and shit like that. Like, you know, it's just so silly to look back on now. But once again, though, like we were talking about how selling out affected the band on this record, this literally is a song about not being able to play a place because you signed to a major label. Literally about that. Like, that really shows you how much selling out affected shit back. That's how much people gave a shit. That, I mean, one of the best songs on the record, you know, is about that. That is the first half of me and Kyle's analysis of Green Day's Insomniac. I hope you've enjoyed it so far, and I really was just going to put this out as one episode, but the audio file, I'm not even kidding, was so long that Adobe Audition would not let me export it by itself. So I had to cut this bad boy in 2 parts. I will not make you wait till next week. We will get that out here in a few days here. But yeah, I was originally going to put this out all as one. But yeah, Adobe Audition does not like that we went as long as we did. So I got to cut it up. But that is it. That's going to be the episode. Give us a little follow at Power Chord Hour on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and hit me up if you review the show, rate and review it on iTunes. Send us a screenshot. I'll send you a free t-shirt and some guitar picks. Hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com for that and anything else you want to talk music. And let me know what you think of the first half of this episode. We'll be back in the next couple days with the second half for you. And I got to thank Kyle for doing this. It was so much fun, and he was a good sport. And we went nice and long and never complained once. And I love talking about this record for way longer than it actually is. I mean, you even at this point, you could have heard the record a couple times. So that is it for right now. We'll be back, like I said. But for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Thanks for listening.